All right, welcome everyone to the March 12th meeting of the Board of Supervisors of Caroline County. We'll call the meeting to order. First order of business, we'll have our invocation. Mr. Black, you want to do the faith?
All rise, please. Heavenly Father, as we come here tonight, we ask you to bestow on us your wisdom and knowledge so that we may do the best for the citizens of Caroline County. In your name we pray. Amen.
And now the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Black. We'll start off with open and board comments. Mr. Thomas, would you like to go first for us?
Mr. Chairman, surprisingly, I don't have any today.
It is snowing outside. Okay. All right, Mr. Black.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I do have just a few. I had an opportunity a couple weeks ago, because it was actually at the school I teach at, to go to the public hearing in Spotsylvania on the solar farm. There was lots of different opinions. That public hearing went on for 9 hours. But just sitting back and watching it from the other side, one thing that I will say that I think that we do, that we can kind of, is there was clapping, cheering, booing of different people's opinions, and we don't allow that. And I thought it was completely unprofessional, and I think we handle ourselves in a much more professional manner up here. So I think that's a testament to what we allow. So next thing, I want to congratulate Robbie Ware. I went to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and he won the Business Person of the Year. Mr. Thomas was there as well, so that was congratulations to him. The third thing, and I will have regular constituent meetings beforehand, but I did get a confirmation. I've been in contact with Congressman Whitman's office. We will be doing on June 13th, location to be determined. We will be doing a joint constituent meeting. Mr. Fowler will be there from the state. Congressman Whitman will be there, from the federal government. We will be inviting Mr. Copeland from the school board, as well as we are actually inviting, Mr. Thomas had promised that he was going to get these two people. We're inviting our two U.S. senators, so to make it all-inclusive. So,
Where's the camera? Where's the camera? Because I want them to see my face that I didn't promise that.
So we are inviting both Senator Kane and Senator Warner to come along, and that was actually something that was recommended also by Congressman Whitman. So we're trying to have a kind of a huge event where we can talk about all levels of government. And so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Ms. Long?
None at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Underwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two comments. Today I noticed there was a litter pickup along Route 652 and Route 30. I'm not sure if the county organized that litter pickup or not, but Mr. Cully, I'm not sure, but I want to say we certainly appreciate it if I'm not sure.
That'd be Mr. Schiebel would have handled that unbeknownst to me one way there, but it could have been VDOT or
I didn't see the truck, but certainly appreciate. It was definitely needed and certainly is appreciated. Second comment is on tomorrow at 7 o'clock. I'll have a Reedy Church constituent meeting at the Dawn Library, 7 p.m. tomorrow night. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Mr. Seeley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to say that I'm having a constituent meeting on the 21st of March at Salem Baptist Church. As always, I'll buy anybody that comes dinner. Second, on a very sad note, for those that have not heard, Mr. Joey Hancock has passed away. He was a very long time elementary school teacher, beloved by many. He was also a very long-time community volunteer, worked in a number of organizations, and he will be sorely missed, and my deepest sympathy to his family. His wife was the first female mayor of Bowling Green, Kathy Hancock, and an attorney in town. And it's just with great sadness that I bring that this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Seeley. I have just a couple, just an announcement on March 23rd. It's a Saturday. We'll have a trail work day for the newly developed, soon to be built Caroline Woodland Trail. Will be at the park complex off Devil's 3-Jump Road, starting at 8:30. And it'll be a drop-in as long as you can type of thing. If you want to stay all day till about 4, that's fine. We're lining up a bunch of resources and equipment and a lot of stone to the tune of about 360 tons of stone to be spread on the trail. County staff has been able to get in there for a couple days and get some things cleared, and it's starting to come together very nice. So Mr. Whiteman's heading up a group to do some bridge building. So a lot of pieces and parts are coming together to make this a very nice county amenity. Also, those that didn't see, or maybe you did, there's a fire truck outside. That is our newest capital acquisition for fire rescue. That is a reserve engine that we had set money aside in the last fiscal year to purchase something used. We ended up finding a provider that could provide us a new vehicle with a modest amount additional. So that I see that as a huge positive. They said it drives well, it's equipped nicely, and definitely needed. It's replacing something that was in service for about 30 years. So glad to have it in the county. And Mr. Black needs to bring some 5-gallon buckets to carry some stone for the trail. So thank you. And that is all I have. Thank you. All right, any amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Mr. Black.
I'm kind of confused on agenda item number 15, which is the tax rate. Doesn't it normally we have a report? I mean, I haven't seen a budget at all for this, and I'm just kind of curious, don't we usually kind of have a budget in our hand before we set a tax rate?
Go ahead.
Not asking you to exactly set the tax rate, but we're not going to have the budget ready except until April 2nd for a public hearing on April 16th. So it'll already be advertised by the time you see that budget. I mean, that's why it's on the agenda to talk about. I mean, do you want to do it now or on the agenda? I mean,
Well, usually we have a presentation, I see a budget before I can talk about it. I mean, that's the only, my concern is I don't know.
I would agree with all that, but that's why it's on the agenda to talk about. I don't know why we're talking about it under amendments to the agenda. You want to pull it off?
He just wants to raise taxes, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm just confused. I put it on the agenda to talk about.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess my confusion is how do I talk about something that I haven't seen?
I
don't exactly how to answer that, but I put it on the agenda to talk about.
We'll defer it. We'll talk about 10:30 tonight. On agenda item 15.
No, we'll just wait till
I mean,
3 o'clock in
move
the
it up.
morning. At the very least, can we move it up on the agenda so that way, if there's people here that are interested in that, we don't have to wait until midnight.
You want to make a motion to make that a different number than 15?
I so move that we move that to agenda item number 7A. First new business. Yeah.
So we'll make it 8A and make the current 8B.
Yeah, that's fine.
Does that work?
Yep.
Okay. Something I got to vote on? Any issue by the board to move that 15 to 8? All right. All right. Any other amendments to the agenda? All right. With that,
Motion to accept agenda as amended.
we have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We have our agenda for this evening. All right, we'll start off with item 1, presentations and reports. Report from the Caroline County Agriculture Fair, Ms. Whitaker. Welcome.
Thank you. All right, gentlemen. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and county government. It's certainly my pleasure to be here once again to present to you an update on the Caroline County Agriculture Fair Association, one of the best nonprofits here in Caroline County. So if you would, I think most of you have turned around so you can watch this PowerPoint with me as we go through. You know, 2018 was a very important year for the Caroline County Ag Fair as we celebrated 100 years of a fair being in Caroline County. All right, Mr. Oops, sorry, I did it. Okay. we have here, it was, as I said, our 100th anniversary celebration of the first fair that was held in 1918. Now, we found that out from research that we had done. Of course, we know how the weather was last June, and so we called it a magnificent muddy event. It affected our attendance. We only had over 7,000 attendees in 2018 as compared to 13,000 in 2017, but we still felt that it was a successful event despite the issues with the weather. We received much favorable feedback from our exit surveys that were done. So we were pleased that it turned out okay. We do know other fairs in the Commonwealth didn't even have their fairs because of weather in 2018. Okay. Here we go. We walked through the decades. We spent greater than 10 months researching the history of the fair, and we did that by going through every edition of the Caroline Progress since 1919 when it was first printed. And that was certainly an arduous task, but it was a very exciting task. We found out lots of interesting things, not only about the Caroline County Ag Fair, but also about the County of Caroline as well. So what we were able to do, we were able to take excerpts of articles and things that we found, and we made a walk through the decades. We were able to find enough information about the various decades from 1918 through 2018. We were able to even fortunate to have things such as actual ribbons from the 1920s and an actual fair catalog. And that's when we found out that the agricultural fair wasn't just about agriculture and a fair, but it was a school fair as well. Much of this was showcased in our Jane and Arthur Flippo Foundation Heritage Center. If you recall, we've had this Heritage Center now for several years due to the beneficiaries, the people at that foundation, wanting to encourage the history of Caroline with regard to agriculture and the timber industry. Well, when we did the history of the fair, we also saw the significant impact that Fort A.P. Hill, when it was established in the 1940s, it had on the county, as we saw evidenced in those articles. We are fortunate to have some artifacts from families that lived in that area of Caroline. So we were able to make a special display devoted to those families that you see on the left. And then, who knew that there was a blacksmith in Caroline in the early 1900s in the Lorne, Virginia area, which of course is down near Frog Level on Barlow Lane. So we had some artifacts given to us from that family, the Barlow family, that we were able to, let people know the history of Caroline as well. Again, we had other things that we did. We had actual barn boards that were donated to us from a barn off the Tate Farm, and we were able to make a beautiful wall to help showcase the various awards that we've received, refurbished milk can, butter molds, actual things that we found that supported the fact that there was a dairy farm there within sight of the fairgrounds at one point in time. One exciting thing that we had happen in 2018 is that the foundation gave us money to establish a sawmill pavilion. So we were able to actually have a working antique sawmill put in place, and that was done by T.N. Carter Obsolete Mill Works and L.L. Carter and Son. And they have this antique sawmill that they have put there on the fairgrounds under this pavilion, and it is fully operational, and it's very much a part of the fair, and again, speaks to the lumber industry and history here in Caroline. Want to point out this pavilion was constructed by all volunteer labor, as is the case for our various buildings that we do have on our fairground home, which I do want to mention, it also was 10 years that we have been at that location too. We celebrated that in 2018 as well. Okay. And of course, we love our antique tractors, and we added farm implements this year. Mr. Whiteman always helps us with this, as does, oops, I'm not supposed to say that, because he's a judge, and nobody's supposed to know that, but oh well. Anyway, it's always an exciting exhibit, and I love to see the antique tractors, and people enjoy those as well. Okay, what was an exciting thing for us also was our new entertainment center. This allowed us to stop renting a tent and a stage floor. This was donated to us, the stage and the dance floor, by Mr. Barry Carlson, a longtime business person in Ladysmith, And we were very fortunate. We even had a comment a couple weeks ago from one of the bands that we had that it's the best stage that they play on. So we were very excited about that. We do need to, we're certainly looking for more sponsors because we do need to finish construction of this entertainment center. And of course, since this is people that are actually enjoying the entertainment center that we had last year at the fair, the various bands that we have for entertainment, for free entertainment once you're in the fairgrounds. People are enjoying that. Of course, what is the Caroline County Ag Fair without home goods? We celebrated 100 years of home goods. Our person who heads that up is Lucine Williams. She's very instrumental in getting that area going and making it the stellar exhibit that it is. And then, of course, I think Mr. Seeley will recognize the kitchens of yesteryear because his wife, Miss Seeley, is instrumental in putting that display together, and he's always involved with her on that adventure that she has. So that was, people enjoyed that a lot. They could see the span of kitchens for 100 years, and then as well as we had certainly things that were very important through the years as far as handcrafts that we had found had been donated to us, again, from the Tate family had given us these items as well. So it was, people enjoy this. We think they go back in time to their grandmother and great-grandmother's house when they come in. It's very nostalgic for them. And of course, Caroline's Barn. Miss Sissy Coleman heads this area up. She manages it every year, gets the exhibits together and the show ring straight and all of that, and just the kids come and have a wonderful time showing their various animals. Of course, it's not an easy task managing the barn. It's very labor intense, and of course, it's not air conditioned like Home Goods, so it's a little different venue. But she does an excellent job with that. And one of the things that we're able to do, because we provide the livestock show, is that children come and exhibit their animals, and we sponsor one of the programs called the Beef Feeder Steer Competition. And they go to various fairs throughout Virginia, and when they end up at the state fair, the child with the most points, they receive a cash award that we sponsor, and we give them this cash award and a certificate for $250 at the end of the year. And that's for beef feeder steers. So we're excited that we can do that and provide a give back to these 4-H kids. And here you can see more of Caroline's Barn with the petting zoo, the various animals that we have. And of course, everybody likes the baby pigs. And something new we did in 2018, we did school day at the fair. On the Thursday of Fair Week, for the summer school kids, we had them come to the fairground, and we provided interactive learning stations for them. And to support education, they went through Caroline's Barn, the farm to table demonstration, which you see a picture of that on the right there. They came through Heritage, went through Home Goods, and then we concluded with a Circus Stella performance, and that's one of the acts that we have there at the fair. And it was over 200 students plus their chaperones, and it's part of our mission to support education. They were also just able to enjoy the heritage part, the educational part with that. And they concluded their day by going back into our Carlson Pavilion and eating their lunch along with their farm-to-table items that they had seen demonstrated earlier that morning, and concluding with our Turkey Hill ice cream snack, which is wonderful. And I want to say that I believe we're the only fair in the Commonwealth that has the big Turkey Hill cow and the free Turkey Hill ice cream. Just want to let you know that. So we're unique. Of course, part of the school day at the fair, too, was you can see them actually doing the things, enjoying the food, shelling corn. Every child shelled an ear of corn. There's Mr. Taylor, who does that for us. And then they're enjoying the Home Goods exhibit. Of course, very important for us, since it was our 100th anniversary, we did have recognition by government. We were very fortunate in that we received a resolution from the Virginia House of Delegates, and then a matter of the congressional record was presented to us, and the flag that was flown at the Capitol on June 6, 2018. So we were very excited about that and appreciative of the efforts that were put forth to do this for us. And I do want to say, as it's on this slide, that through our research of the fair history, it was very evident that since 1918, county government in Caroline had been very supportive of the whole activity of an agricultural fair. as just like you are today. So some things never change. Of course, we are always excited. We go to the annual fair convention in January, the Virginia Association of Fairs, and one of the things we participate in the Communication Awards. And this is an opportunity for fairs to bring all of their various advertisements and items that they've used, whether it be their posters, if we make scrapbooks, we did a photo display board, articles, everything, we participate. And we received 19 ribbons this year, and 3 of those items we entered were best in show, which means we were the best in the whole state, regardless of size of fair. We had a web advertisement, we had a magazine article, you can see there on the right, 100 Years of a Local Tradition, and that one. And then we did a photo essay display which showcased the various activities we had, which are some of the same pictures you're seeing tonight, as well as our authentic 1918 Kodak camera. And so we won for that. We were very excited. I do want to mention here that publicity is certainly very important. What we have to do that to get the word out and to support the event that we're having. But it's all created in-house. Our publicity chairman is Ms. Linda Tate, and she creates these items that that you see, the advertisements and all these things. So we are very fortunate. We don't pay thousands of dollars like some fairs do for this type of work. Of course, we are all volunteer and we work all year round. I would say 5,000 plus hours were devoted to the fair's success in 2018. We continue to have immeasurable community volunteer support, as was evident in our review of the history of the fair since 1918. We are a 501c3 organization, and our mission, as I've mentioned earlier, is to encourage understanding of agriculture history as it relates to Caroline and educate about present-day agriculture business community activities. And we hope we are doing that successfully in the various things that we do provide. Of course, sponsors make it possible, whether they be corporate, small business, individuals, and you, county government. You're one of our sponsors as well, and this is a picture of the actual banner that we have on display at our fairgrounds. We're trying to keep this an affordable event at regular admission $5, 10 and under free. We have admission specials throughout the week, whether it be donate a certain number of canned goods for an admission, that goes to the food pantry. We do school supplies one night, that goes to the schools to help out with those needs. So we are trying to keep it an affordable family entertainment, and we certainly rely on all sponsors. We also like to give back, and one of the things I mentioned was the 4-H beef feeder steer competition that we do that money for that. But other things we do is we showcase the club projects. We provide special ribbons for the 4-H kids, and those are displayed on the things that they enter in the home goods department. We're on the FFA with the Caroline Middle and High School. We are the site of their awards banquet, and this year it's coming up in April. And we provide continued support to them. Mr. Gravitt comes to our meeting each month to give us an update of what's going on, and is there any way that we can help with those students in these various contests and things that they participate in through the Future Farmers. All Caroline students seem to have this need for a lot of service hours now, not just if you're in a club like Beta, Honor Society, and for college, but they all seem to have a need. And so we are one of those places that they satisfy that need to get service hours, and we certainly welcome their coming over and helping us, whether it be wiping off tables, helping us prepare for events, clean up, or whatever. But we always have an opportunity for these students to help, and we appreciate them doing that as well. One of the things we still provide, we've done for quite a few years now, is a $500 annual scholarship to a graduating senior from Caroline High School who is pursuing higher education in the career and technical field, whether that be culinary arts, nursing, draftsman, or what have you. So we're excited we do that as well. And then we like to give back to the community with in-kind sponsorships. We are the site for the 4th graders from the public schools who come for 4-H Agriculture Days, and that's in April each year. We had Lady Smith Day, and then the school day at the fairs, I mentioned we had during Fair Week, and then our Fall Fun Festival, the last Saturday in October, in which we have a free event for people to come and attend, and it finishes up with the tailgate trick-or-treating. And then as of May of this year, we now have assumed the organizational role of the new Caroline Spring Festival, formerly Ladysmith Day. The name was changed so that it would encompass all of Caroline, so people just wouldn't feel like, oh, well, that's Ladysmith Day. No, it is the Caroline Spring Festival for all of the county. And this year, it's Saturday, May 4th, 11 to 5 at our fairgrounds. Same format as before with vendors. We have children's activities. We've got 2 bands, food on sale, and that type of thing. And that is a free event as well. And that is another give back to the county members and surrounding area. So that's our main thing. But I do want to take a chance to certainly to thank you, the board, for all of your support you've given us these years. I've been around 10 years coming to see you, and I'm beginning my 11th year in this role. So I certainly welcome your continued support. But I also want to take a minute to have some fair members here, and I'd like for them to stand to be recognized. And of course, since we're in June now, we know that Summer Fun starts at the Caroline County Ag Fair. We're June 19th through 22nd, and we certainly hope to see all of you there. It's going to be a fun event. We hope it's not another magnificent muddy event, but if it is, we will just deal with it. So I know as you're getting ready for your budget process, you're certainly going to remember us with the Caroline County Ag Fair, the Fall Festival, and Ladysmith Day, but now it's the Caroline Spring Festival. So thank you very much. Any questions for me? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Whitaker. With that, the next presentation for the evening is our bond refunding analysis. Mr. Rogers.
Technical difficulties. All right. Good evening, everybody. So part of our job, obviously, is to look at our debt portfolio and check when we have refinancing opportunities to bring them to your attention. And so we've got that tonight. Just a little bit of a background. All right, this is not going to work out. So if you just go to the next slide, please. Some of you may recall that, I guess it was about December or so, the Fed raised rates, and as we were coming into the new year, there was a lot of expectations the Fed was going to continue raising rates up to potentially 3 times this year. And then some market news came out in January. Things were not going well overseas. Long story short, the Fed pulled back, and they basically have decided that maybe we shouldn't be raising rates right now. And so what we're starting to see in the market on the longer-term part of the yield curve, which is the part we look at, is rates have actually been falling, which is a good thing, because now we're back at looking at potentially refinancing. And it all kind of happened very suddenly, kind of in the early January, February time frame. So we were doing some canvassing. VRA reached out to us as well and said, hey, we've got our pool coming up. Would you guys be interested in doing the 2010 bonds? And we went and started looking further and found out that our 09 bonds are also going to be candidates, but because of the way that the IRS does things, we can't do them right now. We're going to have to wait till later in the fall, because we can't, with the new tax code that changed last year, we can't advance refund tax-exempt bonds with tax-exempt bonds. So we have to wait till we're within 90 days of the call date. So that's something that we can do this fall, this summer possibly. And so we'll be coming back to you with those, and I'll talk about those in just a minute. But what we have tonight that can be done now are taxable bonds. You might recall, go ahead, Alan, the next page if you would. In 2010, we issued $21.4 million of bonds for two different purposes. Almost $800,000 for the Dawn Library, and then almost $21 million there for the wastewater treatment plant. We did that. You might recall that was when the government did those Build America bonds. There are taxable bonds that were issued, and then they turned around and gave us a subsidy so that they would basically be better than doing tax-exempt bonds. It was a way to try to get dollars moving back into the economy after the 2008 credit crisis. So we did this issue through VRA. Now, some of you may recall during sequestration 2013, they cut that subsidy. So originally the subsidy was meant to be 35%. Well, it's now 32.83%. They chipped away at it during a couple of different budget years. So one of the things, our benefits, if we can get some savings out of this, is that we also get ourselves out of the sequestration issue or potentially even further cuts by the federal government, which basically might reduce that subsidy even further. So what happened earlier this year, we got a ruling from the IRS that we could actually advance refund taxable bonds with tax-exempt bonds. So that's what we'll be doing here. Okay, next page, please. Next page just has some of the refunding assumptions. What we're going to show you are rates, current rates, but we've added 20 basis points. And Alan, I'm not going to go through the details here, but go to page 4 if you would, please, sir. This is the actual summary. And the left-hand side of the long numbers there is the existing debt service. So it's about $1.4 million in 2022. We're just looking at the bonds that can be that are callable right now. So that's why you see the principal starting in 2022. And then the right-hand side is what our estimate is. So the bottom right corner, you'll see we're looking at savings of about $844,000. On the left-hand side at the bottom, you'll see a percent savings of 3.12. One of the rules of thumb that we use in our world of is does it make sense to refinance it now versus later, or do we just not do it, is we look at the net present value savings divided by the par amount, the $18.7 million. And the net present value is $587,000 divided by the 18. That gives us that 3%. 3% is sort of the guideline in our world of, yeah, that makes sense. Let's go get that done. If it's less than that, we're like, yeah, maybe we should wait. So we ran this purposely plus 20 basis points because we wanted you to see how much the market could move and let's be right at that decision point. So one of the things I'd like this evening, and I know later in the agenda you're going to take on the resolutions to give us permission to move forward with VRA, is we kind of need to know what the board's willingness threshold is to do the refinancing. In the resolution, you're going to see a 1% number, and I'll explain why we went so low in just a minute. But for this one, this bigger piece, I want to consider maybe a 3% as that savings threshold. If there's members of the board that want us to go lower, that's fine too. But this one is the bigger of the two, and I'll tell you that at the public market rates today, meaning lower than 20 basis points, it's actually $1.1 million. So it does jump up. It's very rate sensitive. The good news is we've actually seen rates dropping in the last several days. Even today, we actually saw a couple basis points reduction in the yield curve. So we're seeing it moving our direction. So hopefully, because the VRA is not going to be selling their bonds until a little bit later this spring, toward the end of April, what we're trying to do is get ourselves in position that if it makes sense, and that makes sense is that 3% target, then we will give them the green light. You'll give us basically you'll give us the county administrator permission to move forward if it meets that 3% on this piece. But this, if I could, there's a smaller piece that's tiny, which is on the next page. I say tiny, it's $500,000. That's the library piece. And it doesn't produce 3%, but to clean up the last of the Build America bonds, we'd recommend going ahead and doing it even at a lower percentage, which is why we use that 1%, because it's currently right at 2% savings. And it's not a lot of money. It's not going to cost you any more to get it done. But we'd like to, if we do the bigger piece, we'd like to go ahead and have permission to do this piece, even if the percentage savings is a little bit lower. So, yes, sir.
My question, to help us make this decision a little bit better since we're deciding what's a good threshold, all of these particular bonds and refinancing can be done multiple times?
We can refinance it again later, but we have to be within 90 days of the call date. And so if this is really kind of a one-shot for that bigger piece for at least 10 years. Because VRA, when they do a public market bond, it's usually a 10-year call.
Okay.
So unless the federal government changes the rules back, and there has been some talk about giving us the ability to do advanced refundings again, that's been kicked around a little bit. But at the moment, and the reason, you might recall, the reason they did it was to help pay for the whole tax cut.
Right.
But assuming that doesn't come back, we wouldn't have the ability to refinance again for 10 years.
So our decision is basically take this now,
Right.
or take a chance that we'll have a better refinancing if rates go down. But if we take this now, our next shot is 10 years.
Right. And
then
my recommendation
if we
is...
wait, we could get nothing.
Right.
Okay.
My recommendation is if 3% is there as we're going into the market the day of the sale, let's get it done.
Take it.
The bigger piece. And if the lower piece is a little bit less, let's just get it done anyway. That's why we have the 1% in the resolution.
No, Mr. Rogers, is
Yes,
there
sir.
$80,000 fee for that smaller note as well?
No, that's both. It's everything together.
Okay.
Because this is all one.
That's a
big
blanket
piece.
fee with
Right.
however many notes we throw in there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. You got it.
Mr. Chair.
Mr.
But
Seeley.
we can't finance the lower amount until fall?
So let me keep going then. So if you flip over to page 7, this is the 2009A bonds, and then you have the 2009B bonds. 2009A is about $3.6 million. The 2009Bs are $2.9 million. So it's basically about another $6 million worth of bonds. Those bonds we can't do until the summer at the earliest. I think it's like July is within 90 days of the call date. The call date's November 1st. So
What was that for, Mr. Cully? Do you remember?
I wasn't here, but I think it sounds like it might have been school-related, wouldn't it?
not through VRA.
Oh, no, it was a VRA one?
Yeah, they're
no, that was
VRA. Sorry. Yeah. I
Nine more
can't-
million, that would, water,
I don't think so.
no, you borrowed that later. Joey's here, what did you borrow?
You remember 09?
You were already in the admin building. Yeah, but I think it was Carolina Pines right before I got
20
here
million
in
is wastewater treatment
1912.
plant.
Yeah, the bigger one was the wastewater
Yeah,
treatment.
Right.
that I know.
Yeah, I apologize we didn't put that in here, so I don't remember what those were.
Right.
In the wells?
The
Yeah.
water, yeah, the water.
Water
line-
interconnect.
Water
Water
line from
inter-
Ladysmith
water-
around.
water interconnect between Ladysmith and Carmel Shores. That makes sense.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
That makes sense. So, and those have really, right now, are producing good savings. You'll see one's at 13%, the other one's at 6%. So if the market hangs in there, we should be able to do those with no problem. But again, because those are tax exempt bonds, those aren't taxable Build Americas, we can't advance refund them because of the tax code change. Otherwise, we would be doing those as well. But those we'll have to come back to you.
So
with
we
that.
actually have 4 different bonds that we're doing, I guess is the point I'm
We
driving
have
to.
2 now and 2 later. That's correct.
Okay.
Same fee? Same fee? Or,
For the later, yeah. There'll be another fee later.
okay.
I'm sorry, yes.
Fee in the spring, fee in the
Right,
fall.
exactly, because that's additional work down the
But the
road.
savings on the later ones is much higher.
But it's built in, and the fees are built in. The numbers you're seeing are net of fees. That 844 is net of, because VRA has their fees and everything. We've been conservative. Those should come down a little bit, but that's our estimate right now. So what we're asking a little bit later tonight, when you get to the items 9 and 10 or 8 and 9, I can't remember where. There are 2 different resolutions, one for the A and one for the B, one for the bigger one, for the smaller one. But basically, that's the permission to get into the pool. And that has to happen this month because of the timeline that VRA has us under.
Mr. Rogers, one quick question, and I don't know if you did it or Mr. Cully did it, but didn't somebody do a study for us in the amount of money we saved in the last 5 or 6 years of refinancing?
You did. I remember you asked for that by email.
And
Right.
you gave it to me, okay. So I have it somewhere. but it's like in the millions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and that's really just because rates went down.
It is, because if I put a chart up there and showed you the last 20 years, it's almost
Right.
a ski slope down.
And there were a lot of things we had to do, like the wastewater treatment plant, when rates were higher.
Schools,
And a lot of school projects when rates were higher, and now they're going down, so we're saving some of that money.
exactly.
But we're saving over 20 years. It's not we're going to get $800,000 tomorrow morning.
Correct. It's budgetary, those are budgetary savings over that length of time. You'll see, in that last column is the budgetary savings. It shows you
Well,
which fiscal years.
That's just for all the people that are here and those who are not here. We're not getting $800,000 tomorrow.
We're not getting a windfall, no.
It's over the 20-year period.
Right.
Thank you.
Right, so the schedule, so we're looking at a bond sale, as I said, late April, basically it's 1st of May, is the tentative bond sale date that they've got on their schedule. They were asking us basically to have the resolutions done by the end of March, since this is your only meeting. So I'm happy to answer your questions.
Any questions by the board?
Mr.
And-
Chairman,
and
I was wondering if
unless
we could do
anyone,
announce that way.
assuming you don't have any, I'm not going to hang around, if that's okay.
What was your question, Mr. Black?
No, I don't have a question. I was just wondering if we wanted to do it now rather than wait. Presenting. So we wouldn't have to stay around.
I don't think the plans to stay around that.
I can't see anything.
It's agenda item 8B now.
The question Mr. Black is offering is, we want to go ahead and take care of this agenda item now so we can ask any questions with Mr. Rogers while he's here.
8B now and 9. And the chair has the discretion of moving any agenda item up it would
Now
like
we
to.
can, whoa.
And I am completely okay with that if that's at the board's pleasure. Go ahead and take care of that.
Do we need individual motions, or we do them both together? I make a motion that we go ahead and approve the consideration for resolution for the issuance of sale and award of the Water and Sewer System Revenue Refunding Bond Series 2019 for Caroline County. 8B.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we also can do the reconsideration of the resolution approving the refinancing and lease financing of various capital improvement projects.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman. So
Rogers, go
I'm
save
going to
us.
go forward with a 3% target on the larger piece.
Yes, that was my understanding.
And if it's below that, we'll just hold off, and maybe the market will get better.
Go save us some money, please.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have the consent agenda. We have the approval of minutes, approval of warrants, planning commission schedule, and the authorization to apply the Fire Rescue Assistance Fund grant for the Department of Fire Rescue.
Mr.
Any-
Chairman, I move that the consent agenda be accepted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as written. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda is adopted. Do that now. I'll pull something else. Mr. Wilson, how much time will you need for this initial? Okay. I want to try to pull one or two other items from the evening session.
Is that what the school folks are here for, 10? But let's do 10, that's the gym floor.
It's the gym floor. We had a very good discussion about that on the 2-on-2 that we can actually talk about probably really quickly.
Well, we kind of said we were going to do it, so.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that the poured floor has other issues with it, so
Mr. Shebel.
Mr.
can come up
Shebel.
and Explain.
We talked about this at length at the two-on-two as to why.
Mr. Shebel, you have the floor.
I have the floor.
Ah, you have the floor. Oh, that was good.
Sorry.
My only question, Mr. Shebels, did we find out what the annual maintenance cost was?
We did. The annual maintenance is $9,000 a year, which is substantially more than what the schools are currently paying. As you know, the board had authorized the replacement of the gym floor to middle school with a budget of $80,000. Staff met with the school staff, looked at the flooring along with their maintenance staff because the floor was unsafe due to it being slick. Staff met with school officials, discussed the flooring issue, and met with a Sam Creed of Colston Floors. He was concerned that the facility was not being conditioned properly, which was confirmed by some of the staff. They reported the HVAC system had been turned off during the summer months, allowing humidity to building there, and the floor was dripping wet as they were trying to use the facilities, and that's evidenced by the watermarks on the floors. It is a misconception that poured floors don't need to be conditioned. While they're not as affected as much as wood floors, they still have to be conditioned to a certain level. Otherwise, the padding actually absorbs moisture and becomes slick. So that, in combination with the surface, is just worn out. It's at a point where it's required to do a facelift. Typically, you would get 20 to 25 years of life out of that type of a product and require a facelift, which is just replacing the top coatings. It is a poured floor that's currently in there. The Public Works Department took all the information that we got from that floor vendor, and we started looking to find another vendor that we could work with that was under contract through the source well. We found a reputable company that does a lot of floor work. They actually did the Bulls professional stadium. Robinson Floors is the name of the product, and they work all over the United States. They're a huge company. They actually control the product from start to end. They have 2 of their own sawmills and make all of their own product. Mr. Casagrande visited the school to get a first-hand look at the flooring. Discussions during that visit, he was thinking possibly resurfacing at that time. However, upon him returning to his office and discussing and reviewing some of the pictures with the installers and the manufacturers, they decided that there was more issues. The shape of the bubbles in the floor indicated that there's either an issue with the concrete underneath deteriorating or moisture penetrating through the concrete, causing the adhesive not to stick to the flooring. Attached, you'll see a picture of the T-molding, and you can see some of the deterioration of the actual concrete in there, along with the bubbles and the delamination that's occurring in that floor. We were given several options. One is to do the facelift. They said they can come in, cut those particular sections out of the floor, and refinish the floor with a facelift, providing a new playing surface. However, there would be no warranty because of the underlying issues with the floor. That would be the cheapest thing to do at $56,000. However, by doing that, we really open ourselves up to a risk, and there's a great risk that the floor is going to continue to, the adhesion on the floor is going to continue to do what it's doing. So staff did not recommend that as an option, however it was thrown out there. Option 2 is to demo the existing floor. The existing floor will be completely removed, ground back down to bare concrete. However, the things that we don't know is what is wrong with the concrete underneath. We don't know if it's cracking. We don't know if it's spalling. We don't know if there's a moisture issue getting into that floor from underneath that's causing the delamination issues. So the price to do that is $81,000 in round numbers. The thing we don't know is the unknown is what's going to be required to do the concrete work. To do the concrete work would be the additional cost of whatever that is. You would then have to waterproof that. That would have to set for 60 days prior to anything being done with the floor. So once you rip the floor out, you pour the new concrete, it's got to set for a minimum of 60 days before you can put the concrete, the new poured surface on top of that. That really impacts the school system drastically. And we're looking at 2 weeks for them to remove the flooring and get the prep work, and it takes a week to pour the floor. So right now you're looking at 2 weeks to rip the floor out, prepare it, however long it takes to do the concrete work, plus 60 days. So you're talking a 120-day window depending on what's wrong with the floor. It could be a simple fix and just needs to be sealed. It could just be a couple places where there's some loose concrete. But we don't know that till we open the floor up.
Mr. Chief,
Yes.
is it possible to excise one of these little, to see if it's moisture or spall?
We could easily cut it open and look underneath of it. We can bring them in and they could do that and then temporarily patch that area to see what's underneath of it. Mr. Seeley had pointed out that when the school was being built, there was a fire in the gym. It was actually under construction. That's where they had all their supplies. And that there was spalling of the concrete due to the heat on that floor at that time. So we know there's some damage that could be underneath of there that could be providing some issues. It sparked from the roof that dropped on the stuff that was underneath, and it caught on fire. But so, that throws up some more red flags. What are we getting into when we get under there? But we could definitely, there's always an option to cut that floor open and inspect an area. But until they get the whole floor open, you wouldn't really have a firm. You might have a better idea of what's under it. There's definitely a bunch of areas that shows the bubbling in there, that would need to be looked at. And what they were going to do is cut the bubbling out, and then cut out the couple places that were patched, and then bring that back up to it, and then do what's called a facelift over the rest of the floor.
So this new floor, we're going to drop right on top of all of it?
So the third option is to come in with a floor product, which is actually a maple wood floor. It's actually what they call the end cut. It's the exact same wood that they use on wood floors. It's just used what they call the end cut, so it's a thinner slat instead of these being about 2 inches. These are about 3/4 inches wide. This particular product, this particular example of this actually has 2 sheets of plywood underneath of it, and it has rubber feet. Because you would actually can lay this over top of the existing floor, you wouldn't use the rubber feet, and you would only get 1 layer of plywood. So it'd be 7/8 thick is the thickness. So you do have a transition issue at each of the doorways, which they have transitions and do this all the time when they're redoing floors. So 7/8 of a transition, it's less than 1 inch that you've got a transition. You look at this and that looks like there's a big transition, but if you were to physically look, you're looking at something like that, you've got a transition over. So they have provided funding in there to be able to replace the transitions. The floor comes with a 1-year warranty on wood floors, unless it's maintained on an annual basis. Just to redo the floor, such as we do the floor here in our gym floor every year, it costs us $3,000. And this product would be very similar. It's $3,000 to do that. In order to get the warranty, and they can do up to 40 years, you would pay $9,000 a year. That provides all the cleaning products that's required, because you just can't use regular water on this on the floor. It's just like the high school floors. You can't use a water product on it. You have to use a special solution that they provide to clean that. It also comes with that warranty, and every year that they'll come in, redo the floor, put a new coat of polyurethane on it. Every 7 years, they'll come in, sand it back down to bare wood, and put a whole new floor back in, whole new the surface itself. So they'll reline it and completely come back with 3 coats of poly as part of that program, and they'll warranty it for up to 40 years.
But who does the training to ensure that the floor is not mopped with water, or who's responsible for the training and the oversight?
They will provide an inspection. They actually have a company that comes out and actually shows the school staff how this floor would be maintained, what needs to be done, all the requirements that it is, so that they understand exactly what's required. They will maintain the solution that's required to clean that, so they'll be talking to the schools with that. It's really up to the schools from that point to make sure that on a yearly basis, if they come back and find out that it hasn't been maintained and there's a lot of issues with the floor because it's not being maintained, then that could void the warranty as well.
Mr. Schiebel, that still doesn't fix the underlying issue, though, right? I mean, it's going to be put on.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, the underlying issue, the floor now is basically has sealed the moisture in the floor. So really your biggest issue would be moisture, which is sealed in. What's happening underneath of that from a standpoint structurally, is there a huge issue underneath of the floor? Chances are there's not. The chances of that are a whole lot slimmer than there being a major issue. There could always be an issue with the underlying floor that could develop. There's no guarantee with that, but you could go in and excavate the entire thing and re-pour concrete, and you could still end up with an issue down the road. It appears that it's been there for 20 years now.
Wouldn't the likelihood be less if we completely excavated the whole project rather than
Yes, sir.
piecemeal? Because I foresee if there's a problem now and something occurred, an injury due to, I would say we foresaw the problem and didn't fix it. If something happened later on and someone was injured, rather than fixing the whole problem, I wouldn't want a piecemeal. I mean, there's literally hundreds of kids in that gym every day.
Every day.
So, I mean, just from a safety factor.
I guess it depends on right now it's an adhesion issue with the underlying floor. That'll be completely underlined once you put the flooring system down and you put your plywood over top and then put your hardwood floor and glue everything together. The flooring will actually be screwed into the concrete floor, so it cannot actually heave up unless the concrete underneath is just completely buckled.
That's only an adhesion problem right here that you're showing us? You think that's only adhesion?
That's deterioration of the concrete.
Right. So I'm saying even if we just replace the floor, you got a potential to have a major issue. So we can look underneath it in certain spots, but clearly there's an issue. And whether we decide to fix 10% or 20%, we're setting ourselves up for possible liability, I think, if we don't correct the whole problem. Say we at least corrected the whole problem to the best of our ability.
Mr. Shebel, and maybe this is completely different, residential compared to commercial. But years ago, I had a problem in my basement with water and cracking when I first moved into my house, and I hired a structural engineer. Is that something that's possible to say, hey, look, so were they, I mean...
Without getting down to see what's underneath of it, I mean, there's no way for them to examine it. It's the only way they can guarantee anything is to completely remove what's there now to look what's underlying issues are.
So you have to remove the whole hardwood, I'm sorry. You have to
It's
remove
not a
the
hardwood floor, it's a poured rubber floor now.
Right, right. You have
So
to remove
that whole thing would
floor.
have to come up to examine it. They actually, when they actually do part of their process, they actually would remove that. They would come in and actually with concrete sanders, and they would actually sand the entire floor till it was back to a natural concrete floor. And then they would have to come in and repair whatever that is, and then they would seal that with a water sealer, and then start their process back up from that once it's sealed.
Well, you gave us three alternatives. What was their recommendation?
Their recommendation was option 3. And that was from both of the floor companies.
Can I ask you two quick questions?
Yes, sir?
One is we're laying wood over concrete that has moisture issues, right?
Yes, sir.
So what is to prevent the wood from developing those same moisture issues, since wood will absorb moisture?
The floor, the sealant in the floor itself, the top layer can't absorb it. It's actually the stuff underneath that can absorb it. The top actually seals it. So they told me that the floor, the top surface that's there completely has sealed in the moisture in the floor. So it takes care of the moisture issue coming up through the floor.
So the moisture will eventually come up through those little first few slabs of plywood, but then the top one will be sealed.
No, the actual floor that's currently down there is sealed
You
now.
will seal that, okay?
Yes, sir. The
Now-
top coatings actually seal that.
Okay, now structurally, you're saying you're going to lay that floor on top of the concrete floor,
Correct. Normally, this type of wood, they would put rubber feet on it and then lay that on the concrete.
but instead, we're going to use some sort of pier system where you're drilling down into the concrete and then mounting that on top of the
And
concrete.
bolting that to that. They would actually seal it. They would take a sealer, drill down through the wood, the first layer, down through into the concrete, anchor that all in, and then they come back and they would glue the top layer onto that plywood.
So theoretically, in response to what Mr. Underwood was asking, structural issues with the original concrete underlayment will be offset by the fact that you're reinforcing it at a 2 or 3 foot spacing? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it'll be a full 4x8 piece of plywood laying down through the entire floor.
So each 4x8 sheet of plywood is going to be anchored how many places? Just the corners?
I don't know that, sir. I don't have that information. I mean, I've looked through the spec sheet, but I didn't see what the requirements were for that.
Yeah, I think if the concrete under it is starting to lose its consistency, by anchoring it more often, we could offset that, because it's going to be balanced in that whole thing.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Ms. Long?
Mr. Shebel,
Yes, ma'am.
on number 3, the floor people, when you talk to them, they were aware of the condition of the current floor?
Correct. They're the ones that actually took those pictures and pointed out some of those issues to us.
They would still warranty it for 40 years at the $9,000 a year, knowing those conditions?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Now, if a big sinkhole opened up and it swallowed the whole floor, that's a whole different issue. But, there's no signs that the floor has any issues of that magnitude. There's just an issue with the concrete and moisture getting through it. So, structurally, is it safe to be on? There's not a risk of the floor collapsing. It's a concrete floor setting on top of the ground. Yeah, it's a poured slab concrete, so you don't have that issue.
Slab on grade.
Nobody's going to fall into a basement or anything?
Right.
Ed, can you please tell me what the school's preference is?
Dr. Calvaric actually had sent an email this evening, and I just wanted to cover some of those things that they brought up. One of them is the requirement to maintain the temperature and humidity in that facility. As I had said earlier, it's required actually for the floor that's in there to be able to do that because the underlayment underneath does absorb moisture. But right now, the school does not condition that space during the summer, so it is going to add to their electrical cost to be able to maintain the condition in that space, whether with their existing floor or a new floor goes down. If you put a new floor down, you're going to be required to meet the humidity standards with a brand new poured floor, just as you will this. If not, your warranty will be void on that also. Now, it might not be as stringent as this. They were working on getting me the estimates of what that is. So that is an issue.
But am I spending $80,000 in electricity for 2 months?
There was also a concern.
Yeah. But now I got to buy a new floor for $80,000. So the electricity is offset that's minimal.
Which I think you'd have to do both of those.
Yeah.
There is a concern they've got with the current chiller and the lack of load of the people being in there. That without having humidity control in there, the system might not cycle on enough to keep the moisture down. So they did bring that as an issue. The other thing is it's significantly more. I don't know what they pay today, but it was significantly more at $9,000 to increase the floor's maintenance annually compared to what they're doing now. Even if you went with the bare minimum, it'd be $3,000, but I don't know what they're currently paying to have that cleaned on a regular basis at this time. And then there's also a concern of the multi-purpose use in the gym in needing to put a cover on it, and they estimate the cover to be between $5,000 and $7,000, and with a roller that it would be rolled up on that also. So I know that this is used actually in the Chicago Bulls weight room. This is actually the product that's in their weight room that they currently have. So it's a very durable product. It's a lot more durable than a typical hardwood floor because the end cut, if you look at the grains on it, they're really tight compared to the traditional maple using the inside. It's not as thick. So those are some things that they pointed out to us why they thought this was a great material for that floor, but it's still a concern that the school had. I know that we bought one. It was about $1,200 for the cover that we bought to cover our gym floor. The big issue that we have on there is ladies' shoes typically leaving black marks on the floor, and some dress shoes will do that. So if they are using something with dress shoes, then they might want to cover that to prevent the marks and scuff marks because it takes quite a bit to get that up. So we do cover our floor. So that's something that I think they may have to look at. How would they actually cover the floor if necessary? I would think for a majority of their events they would be fine, but there could be some issues where they would have that.
Mr. Sheeple, the other space behind the bleachers, does this count for that?
It does not. Currently that is tile. When we had met last week with the school system, they had brought up the tile and how slick the VCT was. The big issue in there, and both floor companies and we had looked at possibly being able to do an overlayment in that room and doing a poured floor over that one. The issue they said that was going on and would end up with any new floor you put in is it was extremely dusty. If you were to take your hand and wipe across that floor, it was just dust everywhere. And you put a little bit of dust on those floors and it is extremely slick. Another issue could be is depending on the kind of wax that's on there. If you use a very stiff, it's not the exact word I was looking for.
Low friction.
Yeah, you can actually use different kind of waxes. So if you actually use a very low friction, which is a hard wax, and then you burnish that in, it can be a very slick surface. If you use a softer wax, it can actually give you traction, as we had discussed, can actually give you traction and do pretty good. If you stand in our kitchen in the back right now, it is very very sturdy. You got plenty of grip in there, and that's how the floor should be. And a lot of that's maintenance. I believe if they actually could keep the floor cleaned and keep the dust off of it. And again, you got kids that are coming in and out all day long, but that dust gets on the floor and they become extremely slick. And that's really, I think, what the issue is with the VCT. It could be a combination of cleaning as well as the type of wax that's being used.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am. Ms.
well,
Ms. Long.
whichever floor we do, whatever the school does, maintenance has to be there, the humidity has to be there. So it's got to be controlled, or they're losing whatever investment. That's what's happened with this floor. So if we invest, and we told them we would, they're going to have to take it from there. For $80,000, you're okay with that, aren't you?
Ms. Keller,
Okay.
actually, if you would come to the
Then-
podium, it'd be great.
Then let's
And if you
move.
flip your page over the back, you can see some examples of that floor product actually installed.
Good evening. First, I would like to just begin by saying thank you for the collaborative process. We're very appreciative of the opportunity to be at the table and have dialogue regarding this topic. We were very appreciative of the data that Mr. Scheibel brought forward at the 2-on-2. It did afford us the opportunity to ask questions. Mr. Honan, who was out of the office today, sends his regards. He did provide me with insight regarding this product. Because we were able to meet last week, it afforded him the opportunity to do some research. And the items that we noted in the email that was shared with Mr. Scheibel have already been communicated to you and addressed this evening. We too do have concern about the foundational status of what is currently underlaying our floor. We hear the comments that you are making, and we yield the decision to the Board of Supervisors, of course, but we would like to request that we remain at the table for that dialogue.
Absolutely. I think that's the intent of everybody up here. We want to make sure you're a willing partner
Yes.
with whatever we do.
In
whatever we
relation
choose.
to maintenance, I think that we can sit hip to hip regarding the educational process of the floor. I think that that needs to take a multi-tier faceted. Not only is it maintenance in relation to Mr. Honan and his crew, but it also should include our activity directors who take great pride in that facility and are really eager to have a product that will extend school spirit into our student body as well as into the community. I also think that the actual administrators need to be at that training as well, because they are the boots on the ground that hold our maintenance crew accountable on a daily basis, as well as, of course, our facilitator at central office who helps support Mr. Honan. So I think if we have that multi-layer, we can have great confidence moving forward in the maintenance through the length of the warranty.
Thank you very much.
Mr.
And
Chairman?
hearing that, I was
going to make the motion, but if
But-
you'd like to make a
yes.
joint motion, I'll go along.
All
Mrs.
right.
Long and I both motion and second that we go with our option 3 and make sure we keep the schools involved with all the training and maintenance required.
Second.
Mr. Scheibel, does that
go.
number account for the cover or some sort of covering material?
It does not. My budget number did not include that. In the school's defense, we finally got the numbers and everything on Tuesday of last week, and we're able to share that on Thursday. So the schools just sat down in our meeting on Thursday. Our meeting, I think, 2-on-2 was Wednesday. So Thursday, I had the meeting with staff at the school and went over that. So they only had Friday and Monday. I don't know if y'all were working Monday. So they had really limited time to look at that. So I wasn't aware of the floor cover until tonight. So that does not include that. It's strictly to cover the floor. They are working on a maintenance agreement.
What's the cover
What's the
cost?
cost of the floor covers, Joey?
Because we're going to vote on this motion right now, so what's the cost of the floor?
Approximately $5,000 to $7,500 due to the fact that this also incorporates the mechanism required to do the rolling on a regular basis,
You're
since
good.
it is a
You're
multi-purpose
good.
facility.
You're good.
Mr. Thomas,
I will amend my motion to
And I will amend my
include
second.
between 5 and a figure not to exceed $7,500 for the floor cover. Call the question, Mr. Chairman?
I had a question. I slipped my mind.
Go, you can ask your question.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I think it'll be a very beautiful floor. if we can pass this. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
We expect
Thank
a
you.
giant bull
Thank
or
you.
something in the middle of the floor.
Right now, it's tentatively scheduled, everything, and we'll lock it in tomorrow to be constructed during the month of June. So the schools have agreed to that time frame, and it should be done by the end of June.
Dr. Calvert, we have one brief question in case you want to jet. I want to get you before you go. In our capital, we show that there is an energy performance agreement that's being implemented with the middle school. So we're optimistic that our heating and cooling issues with that floor will be resolved.
I too share that same sentiment. We are monitoring those numbers on a monthly basis, and we'll be reporting out quarterly to the board to our school board. We're happy to provide that information to you if that's something of interest.
Okay. We're showing 54% on our numbers, and maybe Marcy can, are we progressing nicely with all of our conversions and upgrades?
We continue to be in the conversion process. We are still altering our lighting system. So once we are fully operational with all aspects of the energy management, we'll have a better idea as to what the true picture will look like. But certainly, Ms. Stevens may have a greater depth of understanding as to where we are currently.
I know we've already sent over bills above $700,000, and the project was 1.1. So we are on the way, and I have a few more bills on my desk to send over.
Do you happen to know by chance when the conversion for the heating system will be?
This is we switched over to natural gas in Christmas, at
Excellent.
Christmas break.
All right,
So this is that
we should
conversion
celebrate that.
and the bills for it.
Thank you very much.
It should be in the performance contract.
And may I make sure they understand about the gym being different, so that when you get this new floor, they understand what has to be required in that room?
Yes, ma'am. We will absolutely make sure that we are extremely clear and direct, and that we have a document that's visible in the location where our maintenance crew typically joins together throughout the day, so that they have that reminder.
Well, I meant for the people who are working on your heating and cooling and the energy efficiency engineers, they need to know.
Yes, that's also housed under Mr. Honan, so we will make sure that's disseminated appropriately.
Thank you.
Won't that chiller get fixed under the performance contract?
What about the roof?
I am uncertain of whether or not that is an aspect of the energy management, so I will investigate that for you and be sure to get that information back to you with greater clarity.
All right.
And Mr. Honan certainly can speak with great depth to that topic as well.
The roof repairs?
We talked about those.
Thank you very much,
We've
Dr.
already said we're
Covert.
going to do them.
All right, with that, we need to head into closed session. Mr. Seeley, would you
Mr.
please?
Chairman, I move that the board convene in closed meeting pursuant to the prospective business or industry negotiation of a contract and legal advice exempt from sections 2.2-3711A5A, A29, and A8 of the Code of Virginia to discuss the negotiation of a contract with a business in the county where no previous announcement or potential business expansion has been made, and legal advice pertaining to the same, where this discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the county's bargaining position or negotiating strategy.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We are officially in closed session. For those in the audience, we're about 20 after right now. We anticipate being back about 25 till to 20 till. Thank you very much. All right, we'll reconvene. March 12th Board of Supervisors meeting. Mr. Seeley?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors certify that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters fully exempt from the open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting, to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board.
We have a motion.
Do I have a second?
All those in favor of coming out of closed session?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are out of closed session. We're going to certify that our no non-approved business was conducted. Mr. Thomas, you certify.
I so certify.
Mr. Black.
I so certify.
Ms. Long?
I say certified.
Mr. Underwood?
I so certify.
And Mr. Seeley?
I so certify.
And I so certify. All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I
Ms.
would
Long?
make a motion that this is the proper time that the County Board of Supervisors agree to take part in the performance agreement between the county and MC Dean. And secondly, the performance agreement between the Virginia Economic Development Partnerships, MC Dean, Caroline County, and Caroline County EDA.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Doesn't matter. You took my motion.
All right, with that, we'll move into our public comment. I apologize for starting a little bit late. We will have a public comment before our public hearings. Anyone that wishes to speak on a topic will have the opportunity to do so, and we ask that we limit topics that are not currently on the schedule for public hearing, which are the tower and the lease to you applications. Any other topics other than those three may be discussed. You'll have a maximum of 3 minutes. I will unfortunately have to cut you off at the 3-minute mark. So anybody that would like to speak, you're welcome to move your way down towards the podium. We are officially in public comment.
That's for public hearing.
Yes, sir.
I guess I'm first in line.
Mr. Meshapolo, that's for, your comments going to be for public hearing, which are going to come up a little bit later on.
No, there is no public
that's
hearing.
right. Oh, that's right. Okay, I'm sorry. That's right. My bad. I'm sorry.
That's my job anyway, Mr. Black.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Please proceed.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Michael Mastropolo, and I moved to my 25-acre farm on Route 652 in the Reedy Church District of the county in 1977, and I lived there for the next 30 years. I had a 39-year career in the Virginia juvenile justice system and served the last 15 years as Director of Court Services, a state juvenile court service agency with staff at courthouse offices in Fredericksburg and the 10 surrounding counties, including Caroline. My time in Caroline was rich and rewarding, and I enjoyed participation in a variety of societal public service and political affairs. I purchased 16 acres and an old mill site on the North Anna River in 1990 because plans for Route 652 road project required removal of my house. The Highway Department did take part of my land, but not my house, and I have maintained ownership of the river property since. I'm here tonight to express my strong opposition to the Vikstrom request that you approve an exception to current good and protective zoning standards, a change that would cause substantial negative impacts to the character of the neighborhood and quality of life of the residents. There are many other reasons for disapproval. A short time ago, while I was parked on state land along my property, Mrs. Vikstrom approached me and expressed concern about me being on her land. During the ensuing discussion, she made the statement, "We made a beach on the river." My subsequent inspection revealed a wide cleared area through the woods from the Vikstrom Pavilion area, through my land, to a deep cut through the riverbank berm to the beach area of the river, all my land. Soil had been removed from the riverbank berm and spread along the river. Neighbors witnessing this activity reported to me that Doug Vikstrom had used heavy equipment to excavate riverside soil, again, my land. While I have given the Vikstroms neighborly accommodation to access the river across my land, I have never authorized any disturbance of the soil or riverbank. I have no confidence this kind of encroachment on my land will end with the addition of 100 or more non-residents occupying the area. Application documents have been misleading. A misleading survey document bearing the surveyor's name, state seal, and altered boundaries, making the Vikstrom property appear twice as large as it is, was submitted with the Vikstrom application and was considered by the Planning Commission and this board. When bona fide surveys in 1983 and 1993 prepared for Mr. Vikstrom have been available. and the County GIS Department report used a tax map photo with boundaries grossly misrepresenting the size
Mr.
of the
Mastropola,
Vicksburg.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Needed to wrap up.
will do. Vicksburg property. Also, changes made are confusing. The number of events changed from 6 per year to every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday all summer. Will it be inside or outside? 200 or 150 people? What kinds of groups? What screening criteria?
We're going to have to end right there, sir. I'm sorry.
We respectfully ask
Sir.
you to deny the request. Thank
Thank
you
you,
very
sir.
much.
Anyone else like to come up?
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My name is David Fletcher. I am the Caroline County Little League president this year. I was elected in November, and I wanted to bring you guys up to speed on some of the things that are going on with the Little League right now. I want to come next month as well and give you a more formal presentation, but I want to give you the highlights of what's going on right now with the county, well, the County Little League.
Mr. Fletcher, can you make this in 3 minutes, or would you rather prefer to save it all for the...
I can give you the highlights, and then I can come back.
All right, that's fine.
Highlights are, we have between 250 and 275 children enrolled from all over the county. Every district is represented. We also have been granted the 2019 Virginia State Junior Tournament. All-Star Tournament will be housed here in Caroline County. That's anywhere between 18 to 24 teams that will require lodging in the county, as well as they'll be here for a minimum of 4 days. We look forward to working with the county to help get hotel rooms found, things for the children to do outside of softball, as well as anything related to that. The Board of Supervisors has previously supported us in regards to some of the improvements to the park. I want to bring you an update on some of those. We have completed the concession stand as well as the meeting area. We are currently working towards raising lights on Field 4. That's one of our smaller ball fields. It's used for our younger children. We anticipate having those ready by the beginning of the season, but it's pretty much rained since August, and the water table there is too high for allow us to put those lights up. We were originally going to work with REC to get the lights up, but once we bought the lights there at the park, we can't use REC to do that. They have to drill too deep. REC doesn't have the correct auger to drill as deep as we need to put those lights up. So we're looking at hiring an outside contractor. That's going to cost us more than we actually anticipated. The original cost of the lights was well over $100,000. That was with installation. We took the installation piece out and bought the lights for right around $45,000. So we'll be coming and asking the board some additional support in regards to having have those lights installed. Outside of that, do you have any questions for me right now before I come back next month?
Opening day is when?
April 13th, and obviously you're all invited. We have, with the expansion of the park in regards to lighted fields, we will have games going on all day, so if you can't make the ceremony, you can definitely come and watch some pretty good baseball and softball.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Y'all have a good evening.
Anyone else like to come up? That's
Good evening, and thank you. My name is Kathy Friese, and I'm here to speak against the special exemption permit for the property on Anderson Mill. My husband's son and I live on Shockey Lane in Caroline, and we have for the last 21 years. We live 3 miles by road from the proposed event venue, but we are also on the North Anna River and are only about a mile away by water. While we do have some concerns about noise, since we can hear the train when whistle from Beaver Dam in the evenings, our main concern is that those of us who do not live right on Anderson Mill did not get any notice of this proposed venue till we heard about it from residents who live closer. I feel we should have been given time to study this proposal to see if it addresses our concerns of noise and increased traffic. These do not just affect contiguous neighbors. Anderson Mill is one of the only north-south routes in the western part of the county. Both my husband and son commute on it more than once a day, frequently along with tractors and other farm equipment. It is a 2-lane, winding road with no shoulders in many places. There is no turn lane into the proposed venue, and it is on a curve with very poor sightlines in some directions. You'll be having drivers unfamiliar with the route trying to first find the venue to start with, and then leaving the event late at night, possibly under the influence of one or more alcoholic drinks, driving unfamiliar, very dark roads. The event planner, in letters that she sent to the board, indicated that they won't let people drive drunk, but the same application states in number 15 that the overnight parking shall be prohibited. So already something is not going to be in compliance there. Once or twice a year, the area could absorb events like this, but a possibility of up to 156 events annually would really change this corner of nature, which is supposed to be a rural preservation area. And it would also prevent safety issues that I don't think have really been looked at closely. And so I urge you to oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, members of the board. My name is Stuart Sullivan. I live directly behind the Vickstroms across the river in Hanover. I do own property in Caroline County on Dawn Road. I've been living on this property. I own this property for 16 years. I've known the Vickstroms for 16 years. I've known the Finchams who live next door to me for 16 years. They've been good neighbors. I can't say anything about them. But this is not the right place for this. This is a small venue that you're going to be bringing in 180. We don't even know the numbers. We watched the board meeting. It's all over, whether it's going to be enclosed or not. The Finchams' property is directly across from the Vickstroms. You can look from their back porch and see the pavilion. I don't know how they're not going to be affected by noise or music or stuff like that. There's a 30-foot drop from the back of the Vickstrom property onto Mr. Mastropolo's land. There's no provisions in it for any kind of fencing or anything to protect somebody who is unfamiliar with the property from walking off that and injuring themselves. I have 3 problems. It's going to change our quality of life. I spend every dime I have on this property. I built the house I live in myself. It's a pride. It's something special to us. We got lucky. We're not rich people that could afford expensive land. We just got lucky and bought land and built our own house. Now, my wife is driving me crazy because she's worried. We can't go down to the beach anymore and enjoy the beach when we want to. Maybe we're over-worried. I don't know. I just know we moved to Beaver Dam to be in a rural community. Nobody moves to Beaver Dam for conveniences. If you've ever been to Beaver Dam, there's a country store. People like me belong in Beaver Dam. You don't want me as your neighbor. I leave ladders out in the back, but nobody can see them. But that's what we believe in out there. That's what Beaver Dam's about. There are 2 types of people out there. Those who've lived there their whole lives and have families there from generations, that's where I came from, and people who move there. And that's who I am. I'm the come-heres. I don't want to change it. I love the country. I love the fact that when we go down on the river, I can wave to Mike and Allison or Doug and Sharon. We've gotten along. It hurts me to be here tonight. This has ripped me up to have to come and speak against a neighbor's idea. I'm a live and let live kind of guy, 100%. This is going to affect us. We've seen it. There's evidence of previous weddings that trespassed on Mastropolo's land. We didn't know it was Mastropolo's land until he came down. I never met the man until 3 weeks ago. Then I found out last 16 years I've been talking to somebody about property that's not really theirs. It's Mr. Mastropolo's. We've been open with the beach as much as we can. I probably had more problems than anyone else with trespassers. When I first moved there, we thought we'd found God's country, found out everybody else knew about it. We had more trespassers than people I didn't know, and I tried to do it in the right way, a neighborly way. This is our land now. You need to come talk to us. Walking through my driveway, not saying a word, on the way down to the river.
Mr. Sullivan, you're at the 3-minute mark.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to make these comments tonight. I hope you will take my comments to heart. It's a community we don't want shattered. I don't want to have issues with the Vickstroms. That's not what I'm here tonight to do. I thank you for listening to me, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. My name is Kim Nave. I am here to speak on behalf of the children of Caroline County. Back in the beginning of the school year, we rolled out new Chromebooks. These Chromebooks are giving our children access to things they should not have access to. I'm going to try to make this as short and sweet as possible. I know of 2 Chromebooks that are currently now with Stafford County investigators that are investigating conversations that our children are having on these Chromebooks during school days, during school hours. I have contacted the school system, I have contacted the principals, I've had meetings with the teachers. These Chromebooks were not locked down like they should have been. Our children are emailing each other during class. They are going places on the web that they shouldn't be. They are creating additional email addresses to do things to get around the filters that are in place. The filters that are in place are not working to the full extent that they should be. Our children are being put into danger. I'm not sure what the board can do at this point since they've already been rolled out. In my opinion, it was without, our children have become guinea pigs. They are test pilots. They should not be test pilots. They're going places where they shouldn't be. I had a meeting with the IT department. They have done a couple of changes. My concern at this point is that the parents are not being made aware that the filters that they were assured of that were put into place are not working, and they need to be extra vigilant and look at their child's histories, look at their email addresses, see what they're talking about during school, when they're talking about things during school, in class. These things should not be happening. Caroline County schools aren't top of the list. These Chromebooks are not going to help that because they're not concentrating on what they're supposed to be doing. They're playing games, talking to their friends, and not concentrating on the schoolwork they're supposed to be doing, and the teachers are not catching them. I have a granddaughter in 7th grade, Caroline Middle. I know for a fact that she sits in her classes with earbuds in, watching YouTube. I spent the last week in and out of meetings, taking time off from work, going through her Chromebook, seeing things I should not have seen, read things I should not have read, and I'm sure she is not the only student. Like I said, I know of 2 that have been turned over so far. My granddaughter will not get her Chromebook back. I have made arrangements with her teachers to make sure that she is, if she is on a Chromebook during school, that she is monitored while she's on that Chromebook. I'm not going to have her be able to get into these sites that she should not be able to get into.
Ms. Nate?
Yes.
You're at your 3 minutes. If you'll please wrap it up. I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Like I said, I'm not sure what you guys can do at this point since they've been rolled out. The parents need to be notified. The school system's not notifying these parents that they need to. And in closing, I will say I do have a woman that is willing to step up and create any type of flyers, do seminars. She has a master's degree in education and a bachelor's degree in technology. She's ex-Marine. She said she will step in pro bono, do anything that we need to do in order to get these children educated and the parents educated in internet safety.
Could I ask her a quick question? I know we don't normally, but did you know the school superintendent's right behind you?
Hi, I spoke to you. Yes. Yes, I spoke with the superintendent. I've also talked to the board, to Mr. Spalding as well.
Have you gone to the school board to make that the same presentation?
I have not
Okay.
yet.
Because they're really the ones in charge of the Chromebook project. And I definitely appreciate you letting us know, but that's why I pointed out the school superintendent, because it's
Right.
really their responsibility.
Yeah, we have spoken.
Mr.
Like I said,
Taylor.
I've spoken to Mr. Spalding a couple of
Taylor?
times.
I'm sorry. Mr. Thomas, my apologies. Sorry. It's keep this going.
I only have a couple of hot buttons. That was one of them.
My apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm sorry. Anyone else like to come forward and speak on a item that is not currently on the agenda for this evening? Anyone else? All right, with that, I will close public comment, and we will move into our first public hearing. SBX, sorry, I left my glasses at home. SBX 10, 2018, Vision Baptist Church of Ladysmith, owner of Verizon Wireless applicant. Mr. Finch.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your first public hearing tonight is SBEX 10-2018, Vision Baptist Church of Ladysmith, owner, Verizon Wireless applicant. They're requesting a special exception permit in accordance with Article 17, Section 13, and Article 9, Section 3.14 of the Caroline County zoning ordinance on a portion of tax map 67-3-4, consisting of approximately 1 acre of land. Property is located at 19,443 Jefferson Davis Highway on the east side of U.S. Route 1 in Ruther Glen in the Mattaponi voting district. The proposed use is for a 199-foot-tall telecommunications tower and a supporting ground equipment. 2030 Comprehensive Plan designates this area as being within the Ladysmith Community Planning Area and identified as office business. Verizon Wireless has identified the need for additional coverage in the Ladysmith area and along the I-95 Route 1 corridor. They're requesting approval of the special exception permit for an additional cell tower pursuant to Article 9, Section 3.14. The facility would include a 199-foot-tall monopole tower and the ground equipment compound located adjacent to the tower location. The ground area would be fenced in, and as shown in the GDP, would also have a landscape buffer around that property. The existing entrance to the church would be utilized for access to the site, so there will be no additional entrances off of Route 1. Attachment A in your staff report includes the narrative, the general development plan, and any comments received from citizens. The existing property is a church. The tower location will be located to the rear of the church property and would not adversely affect the church itself. As the board is aware, the Commonwealth of Virginia last year adopted a number of modifications to its telecommunication regulations that rendered a number of the standards in our ordinance obsolete. Based upon that, the Planning Commission did forward this application to the board with a recommendation of approval subject to the 4 conditions that the localities can now impose on a special exception permit application.
You ready for questions?
Yes, sir.
I'll start us off. One quick one. Under compliance with standards for communication towers, it says, given the location of the tower in the middle of the field, staff believes the buffer requirement would serve no purpose. It looks. I look at the map, and it's not in the middle of the field.
Hang on one second.
It looks like a carryover from the last Verizon Wireless application a couple months back.
It probably should have said to the rear of the field. There is a wooded buffer to the back, but it was located to the rear of that field.
Okay. The box has it completely in the wooded area, but
Yes.
just will there be any trees around it? Or
There will be some landscaping, some buffering around it. It would be augmented by the landscape buffer required in the GDP. However, we cannot require that wooded area be retained in that wooded area be retained in perpetuity.
Okay. And they're looking at setbacks. There's no really scale here that I can see right now. But is there a requirement to stay off the property line X number of feet that I'm not seeing somewhere?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
We used to be able to impose setback requirements. We could not impose setback requirements under state law.
Really? Okay. That resolves that. All right. Ms. Long, you have a quick question?
Yes. Mr. Fitchum, under conditions for approval, since there will be some clearing to put the tower in, this is a church property, can we add on the screening that there be evergreens or trees planted around the fence line to protect the view from the church property and the adjacent property?
Yes, ma'am. You can require landscaping around the base of or the compound itself. You could add language to augment the existing landscaping in place with the additional landscaping.
All right. I think that timber gets harvested, storms knock down trees. I think we want to protect the view from the church. I'd like to see some evergreens planted around the fence. That's just try to make it pretty.
All right. With that, we'll move forward to the public hearing. All right. Thank you. We will open up public hearing SBX 10, 2018. If you have anything to comment on, you'll have 3 minutes to comment on this topic. We are now open. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Chairman Forehand and members of the Board of Supervisors. For the record, my name is Steve Romine, local attorney for Verizon Wireless. I have with me tonight David Benamino, who is the zoning manager for Verizon on this project. We are requesting the county approve a special exception permit for a 199-foot tower as indicated by Mr. Fincham. This is SBX 10, 2018. I'm not going to repeat everything that was stated earlier. I think you've got a full package in your handout. But very quickly, this is a B1 zoned property. An existing church is on the facility, and the access to our parcel, which is an 80 by 80 lease parcel with a 60 by 60 compound to the rear of the church, is through the existing entrance. So there won't be any additional entrances off Route 1. Very quickly, there are no lights because it's below 200 feet, 199 feet. There's no requirement of the FAA to light the tower. It will be a monopole in a gray color. It will be built structurally so that it can be co-located on by up to 3 additional carriers. In your package, you'll notice there are setbacks indicated from the different property lines. I think one is 79 feet. And then the tower itself is constructed to fall within a 50-foot radius. So there shouldn't be any concerns about the fall zone. My understanding also is that it's more than 600 feet from any proposed facility. So it's certainly in a very safe area and well screened. Verizon has determined this area lacks coverage due to existing facilities. There are no other structures they could co-locate on nearby to fulfill the needs. This will improve coverage for residents, businesses, and travelers in the area. The addition of this tower will permit Verizon to bring LTE coverage here. As indicated earlier on the buffer question, certainly if you look at the plans, we are proposing buffers on at least 2 of the 4 sides of the compound, because the other 2 sides have a fairly good stand of trees already there. It doesn't make any sense to remove really good trees to put up a smaller buffer. So I think if you look in your site plan package, I think it's shown on LE2, you'll see the proposed buffering right next to the church and partially around the property, and then to the east and the north on this diagram shows the heavy stands of existing vegetation around the property. The 4 conditions that were cited in the staff report are acceptable, and I will stand by for questions. We ask that you approve SBX 10, 2018, and I thank you for your time.
I just had one brief question.
Yes, sir.
And for everyone's benefit, he is the applicant, and I misspoke regarding your 3 minutes. So you do have the luxury of taking longer than that to explain.
3 minutes is fine. I hope I can cover that. I didn't want to be repetitive.
Well, you're over that now.
So I am? Okay. Then I yield back.
No. We have a water tower about a mile away. Was that? Do you know if that was considered?
I do not know of the water tower you're talking about, unless it's the. Well, I do know that we have plans to co-locate on a water tank.
I'm told that it was considered and it was deemed unworthy to some degree.
Unacceptable. Okay. All right.
All right.
There's the answer.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I don't hear exactly what Mr. Schiebel said, but it was. Verizon deemed that the
water
proposed
tank,
location
this
was a more
location
suitable.
was better for the coverage they needed.
Okay.
So, exactly.
Thank you, both,
Yep.
to both of you. Any other questions of the applicant before we open up to others? All right, thank you, sir. We're going to
Thank
open up
you.
to other folks.
Appreciate it.
Anyone else that would like to come up and speak regarding this specific XPX 10 2018? Anyone else? Last chance. And we are closed with this. Thank you.
Need a motion?
No. It's a Mattapan district. You can ask questions if you like.
Any questions of Mr. Fincham?
I was going to wait till last. I just wanted to make sure Mr. Black wasn't going to make a mistake again.
Any of the board have any questions
Go
for
for
Mr.
three.
Fincham before we proceed to the next item or other?
No other questions?
No other questions?
I have some questions of the applicant. Mr. Romaine and I spoke earlier in the day, and it's good to see you again. You were here in January.
Yes, sir. Thank
And,
you.
and at that time, the county attorney informed me that my normal questions could lead to a lawsuit if we turned it down. So I intend to vote for your project,
Well, thank you.
but I'm going to ask my normal questions.
Sure.
In our conversation, we asked if you had plans for other locations that would serve the more needed areas of the county, and you were going to get back to me.
Yes, indeed. I appreciate our conversation, and I did research that question. The question was, are there other locations that Verizon's currently planning for expansion in the county? And the only one we're aware of is a co-location on a water tank near the Flying J at I-95 and exit 104. Outside that one, and that's a co-location on an existing tank. Now, you also know that we just recently approved Lake Landor, which came through the board.
Right.
So right now, this one, that colo that's planned, and the one we just completed approval on are the three that are pending. I'm not aware of any other plans currently.
Okay, let me help you just a little bit.
Sure.
On Route 2, which is the road going from Bowling Green to Fredericksburg,
Okay?
there are several Verizon dead spots.
Okay?
On Route 301 South, going towards Richmond, there are several Verizon dead spots. I guess if I spoke for Mr. Seeley, because I go to church in his district, the whole district is a dead spot. So I would just like to have the county work with Verizon to help improve the coverage, especially since a lot of people use Verizon hotspots for their, web services.
Sure.
So if we can do anything to help you, we would appreciate that.
You had mentioned, how can the county help to get expansion, and I should have answered it at the time, but the way the system works is it's a really complaint-driven process. So as complaints are registered to the company, those complaints are then passed up to the RF engineers. The RF engineers will then look at where these dead spots are, and then when the issue rings for searches, that becomes a component of future coverage. So I think how you can help yourself is to have people register those complaints. I think there's an online way to do that.
Would you have the complaint number? Because I'll call you right now.
I believe you go online. Was it Verizon.com? We can get it. Mr. Benamino says he can get it to you.
You have the number? Okay, if you will email that to me tomorrow morning, I'll put that on our Facebook website and attach it to the county, and I guarantee you'll get 30,000 calls.
Well, that's the way the system works.
I will work the system if that's the way the system works.
Certainly.
And my other question was similar to adding more service. I'd asked you if you had caller authentication.
Yeah.
And I think you weren't aware of that, but that's when people call and they use a fake phone number.
Correct.
Call authentication is a technology that is available that you can screen those calls so we can really know they're coming from a foreign country and not the same exchange that the rest of us have. And I don't need a car maintenance, and I don't need my student loan reduced, and I'm not ready for Social Security or, Medicaid, all those things they're calling about.
Right.
Can you help us do that?
We did a little research on that too, because I wasn't aware whether that was a service being provided. It is not a service that Verizon nor any of the other carriers.
No, it's a technology.
Right, that they don't have it now as part of their offering, but it is under consideration at a national level, and the FCC is encouraging providers to look into it. So that's the best I have at this point. So
Yeah.
you knew something I did not, and we researched, and that's where we are. But
Yeah.
hopefully in the future, that will become available.
Well, the FCC right now is asking you if you would do it.
Yeah.
What they should be saying is they should tell you you should do it.
Eventually they might, yeah.
Well, just like they told us we had to approve your towers, they should eventually tell you you should protect their, your customers.
Certainly would be something beneficial, I think.
All right.
Yes.
I'm going to motion that we approve this in the hopes that you will expand to other areas of the county that are much underserved.
Certainly. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'm going to find that Verizon number so we can broadcast it before the meeting's over.
We have a couple constituent meetings in the next couple of days. They can take those as well.
I'll make sure you get it for those two.
All right, moving along to rezoning 05-2018, lease to you, LLC owner applicant.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I believe you can hold both of these public hearings concurrently since they are related to the same property and same application. You would need separate motions if you make a motion tonight.
Okay.
First item is RZ 05-2018, lease to you, LLC owner and applicant is requesting a rezoning from M1 Industrial to B1 Business on tax map 52-D-1-4, which consists of approximately 1 acre of land. The property is located at 7448 Commerce Way in the Ladysmith Industrial Park, Ruther Glen, Virginia, in the Madison voting district. The proposed use is B1 Business to allow the construction of a flex space, retail, and office building. The second public hearing is SPEX-11-2018, which is also leased to you, LLC, owner and applicant. They're requesting a special exception permit in accordance with Article 17, Section 13, and Article 9, Section 3.20 of the zoning ordinance to allow a motor vehicle repair and service facility minor, which is a use allowed by special exception in the B1 district. The 2030 Comprehensive Plan designates this area as being within the Ladysmith Community Planning Area and designated for community business uses. The applicant is requesting the approval of the rezoning and the special exception permit to rezone the property from B1 and to allow a minor auto repair establishment. The applicant already has a permit to construct and is in the process of constructing a flex space building that can be broken up into a number of small units. One of the proposed users is an auto repair establishment that would move from elsewhere in the applicant's park. Comprehensive plan calls for this area as community business and light industrial, and the adjacent properties which are developed are all developed for a number of light industrial, office, and retail uses. The proposed use of this application is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan. Planning Commission held its public hearing on these applications at its January 24th meeting. There were no speakers either in support of or in opposition to the request. And the Planning Commission unanimously voted to forward both the rezoning application and the special exception permit application to the Board of Supervisors with a recommendation of approval subject to the conditions contained in the special exception recommendation. With that, I'll address any questions that the board may have.
Mr. Fincham, these properties here, they've all possessed business, auto repair, athletic facilities,
Offices,
offices.
and even some retail in proximity to the site.
And they've all lived in harmony for years now.
Yes, sir.
That's an official, term.
It's an official planning
Yeah.
term, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the board? All right. We're going to open up public comment. We'll public hearing for RZ 05 2018 and SBX 11 2018 lease to you LLC owner applicant. Go ahead and open up. Anyone that'd like to come up and speak on this topic, you will have 3 minutes to do so.
Good evening. My name is Kerry Bowen. I live on Jericho Road, and I'm here on behalf of the petitioners here this evening. At the risk of messing up what seems to be a pretty good situation right now, I would only add that the business is set up for the auto repair shop so that the cars will be behind the building. And we brought in and out from a paved parking area behind the structure so that it won't be an eyesore in any way to the people that frequent that area. And it seems to be, I think it would add a lot to what Ladysmith is and to what it hopes to be. At the risk of being too brief, that's, I think, all I have to say. And on behalf of Mr. Stout, I see Mr. Thomas has left, and he loves that brevity there. If there are no questions, I'll sit back down.
Thank you very much, sir.
Sure.
Anyone else like to speak on either of these two items? Please come forward. Anyone else? Last call. And we are closed.
I just have one question, Mr. Fincham. The special exception goes to the owner of the building, not to the leaser of the building?
It goes to, yes, it goes to the property itself.
Because typically we don't do that, correct?
It's kind of a mixed bag. Sometimes we issue it specific to the owner, sometimes it's issued to the building as a whole.
Okay.
Is there an opportunity to create a zoning that would allow for either in this type of environment, instead of having to spend the money to go back and forth?
We are actually working on an ordinance amendment that would create some flexibility between the industrial and commercial districts.
I would like to see that. Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, everyone's looking at me. My district, I'll go ahead and take the lead. I'll two separate motions. One to accept RZ 05 2018.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And SBX 11 2018 lease to you LLC owner applicant. I make a motion we accept it as as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And motion carries.
Great presentation by the applicant.
All right, we're going to move on to unfinished business. Item number 5, SPX 06 2018, Bickstrom, Doug, and Sharon, owner applicant, regarding special exception for a special events facility.
Good evening, members of the board. SPX 06 2018, the owner applicant requests a special exception permit in accordance with Article 17, Section 13, and Article 4, Section 5.23 of the Caroline County Zoning Ordinance on Tax Map 64-A-29A. Your staff report remains unchanged from the previous meeting, except for stating that the building is an enclosed structure, and changes to Condition 4, where all amplified noise shall be contained within the enclosed structure, and Condition 19, where events shall be limited to 140 guests due to a max occupancy load for the structure.
Mr. Chairman?
Any questions by the board?
Quick question about.
Absolutely.
You said the number 4 was the enclosed structure.
Yes.
That has not been built yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Other questions?
Mr.
Mr. Black?
Is it okay if I ask the Vickstroms, I know it's not a public hearing anymore, is it okay to ask the Vickstroms questions? Or is that?
I wouldn't open that.
Okay. Okay. All right, well, then I'll skip that. Mr. Whiteman, can you come up as well? Mr. Pennington, can you stay right there? Well, he.
I didn't,
Oh,
it didn't decide either way. I'm just,
okay. I thought you
I guess
said
I'm processing.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. I'll
Start
keep them.
with Mr. Whiteman.
Yeah, Mr. Whiteman?
Sorry.
I'm looking at I just want to go how we got the site plans that are in our packet, because I saw there was some concerns about some surveys and stuff. The site plans, are those what are in the packet? Are those accurate?
What I reviewed were the conceptual drawing for the addition, and when I went out and did a site visit with the Vickstroms, as far as the kitchen, and then the proposed wedding chapel, or whatever we call it, yes, they were in compliance with setbacks, and everything met building code requirements.
So that includes the site plans and the setback. You've got the setbacks are okay?
Yes, sir.
Now, as far as, because we had, at one time, I think the occupancy load said 200, and we're down to 144. What is the reason?
Well, I think, in working with Craig, the proposal was 200, but then when I got the measurements for the building, there's an OC load that is assigned by the building code, and you take the square footage and the design of it, and you divide it. There's a formula I use, and size of the structure limited to an OC load of 140.
Okay, so it's 140.
Yes, sir.
So down from 200. One of the questions I had, and I don't know, is it common, maybe Craig, this is more you than, I don't know, either one of you can answer. Like when we do, is it normal for us, like the agricultural fair came to us tonight. Is there, when you're going to the agricultural fair, I know it was muddy last year, do we have like for them or something like that, do we usually set, is that common to set number of cars in an area?
Not on every application that comes in.
So if the Vickstroms had a wedding or a party that was not for money, and they had 200 cars there would be no violation of any rule, correct?
According to a zoning determination from 2012, if it is a private party not open to the public, then they could have that. Not limited.
Private meaning like their friends, their
churches, birthday parties.
Okay. All right. Now, the other thing, just as far as their facility, and I want to make sure, because this is a big difference. The facility, all of the music in the facility has to be in an enclosed structure, right? It's walled. It's not we're not talking about a tent, like a temporary tent structure that they say it's enclosed. It's going to be a walled, permanent structure.
Correct. According to Condition 4, all amplified noise must be contained within the enclosed structure.
Is a tent considered a structure?
No. This specifies for enclosed structure.
Okay. Like permanent walls or garage doors that can be opened up? Or what are we?
It's proposed as permanent walls right now.
The other question that I got today, I talked to some people, and I really appreciate everyone's input. I mean, I've had a lot of input from every side imaginable, and I've actually made some phone calls myself to different people in the area. Let's say that the Vickstroms want to have a wedding at 9, and then a wedding at 1, and then a wedding at 4. Is that allowed?
There's nothing prohibiting them at this time.
Does the applicant plan, I mean, I guess that would be a question I really have multiple, that's something that's not known in here. That's an unknown, and I don't know how to get that answered without asking the applicant. Yeah. Mr. Vickstrom?
But, Mr. Black, it's not addressed, so therefore this is a restriction, so if it's not a restriction, then it's interpreted that it's accepted.
that would not be permitted under the current zoning.
It would not be permitted, even under the special exception?
No, not, well, it depends on how the special exception is written, but under your current zoning, a special events facility is not permitted in this district, hence the request for the special exception. But they can't just have private parties. A special events facility is not defined, excuse me, as a commercial venture or as a for-fee activity. It's simply defined as a party not open, an event that is private and not open to the public. So, whereas you might have a single wedding or a single party for your friends or an occasional one, once you reach a point that's somewhat subjective because it's not defined in the ordinance, in terms of a number of parties or a number of weddings or events of any other sort of event, you at some point will become a special events facility. That's a determination that would be made by the zoning administrator, would be subject to appeal to the BZA, and their decision then appealable to the circuit court. Another way that could come about would be that if there were complaints made about activities going on a property that shouldn't be going on under the zoning administrator could issue a notice of violation, and then that would be prosecuted. But under the current zoning, it seems to me that any type of activity where you're having 4 repetitions in one day, you're going to meet the definition of a special events facility, and you would not be permitted to do that without a special exception.
Right, and I think, Mr. Emerson, I was referencing if they got the special, if the special events was, if the special exception was passed.
Okay.
Would there be something, so if it's passed, I'm saying.
If it's passed, there would be no, unless there is a condition that restricts the number of them, 1 a day or 2 a day or 1 a week or whatever it is, you'd have to put that in the conditions.
May I ask the applicant that? Well, I mean, I understand that, but I mean, I don't want to, is that the plan? Is the plan to have multiple events in a day, in a week? I mean.
No, a wedding would be 1 wedding per day. It would be like a Saturday wedding. You guys set up on Friday.
So you would be okay with a condition that said it's 1 event per day?
Oh, yeah. There's no way it would be impossible.
Probably 1 a week.
Probably 1 a weekend?
Yeah, that's more realistic for us.
Yeah, 1 a weekend, I suppose.
So you're okay with 1 a weekend?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Pennington? At the last meeting, I would have liked to have been able to vote on this issue, and we didn't have minutes from the Planning Commission. And I appreciate the minutes are in there, but I read some of the opposition letters, and I kept on seeing the number 6, that somehow the number 6 got into it. And when I read the minutes, I didn't see anywhere where the Planning Commission officially put any sort of restriction of 6. Was that just in going through the conditions? I never saw that. So I'm wondering where we got the 6.
I believe that was from a meeting with the applicant at the very beginning as to how many you would be looking at having in a given year. But it was never put into conditions.
So it never officially got into the conditions, because when we saw it in our packet, I read about stuff, but I never saw it. So it was never conditioned that, hey, the applicant officially agreed to 6 per year. Is that what you're saying? Okay. The other thing I was looking at is usually and correct me if I'm wrong on this, usually on a special exception we get comments from various departments, schools, sheriff's department. I did not see that. I did not see, maybe I overlooked it. I was looking for a comment from, usually.
We received comments.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so most of them were no comments. Okay, I overlooked that.
Yes.
All right, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Mr. Pennington, hold tight. Is it customary that we would have an assembly events facility that doesn't have any septic abilities?
That is up to the health department and up to their approval.
So do they have any criteria for that approval? I can just build as big a building as I want and put a bunch of porta potties out back?
For this facility, it was sent to the health department, and they had no comments. Oh, see attached, sorry. And the applicant proposed to have the porta potty brought in by the wedding guests.
And what application version did they get?
The original. I'm sorry.
Was that defined as 6 events per year in that application?
No. Since they requested to have a porta potty on site by the wedding, by the person having the wedding, the health department did not comment on that.
All right. Do y'all see the health department information in here? Did I miss it?
It just says portable toilets provided pursuant to health department requirements.
I can't see it. I don't have the glass. I don't remember reading it earlier.
That's why I go electronic, so I can search.
Yeah.
Could I ask Mr. Emerson a question?
Mr. Tom?
Mr. Emerson, you just stated something about a special events facility, and a lot of times, you know, we're presented with issues like this, and we say, well, the applicant can do X if they want to anyhow. So what you just said is opposite of our normal understanding, and I want to make sure I'm clear.
The applicant can do X with their property as long as they don't violate a law or an ordinance or the zoning ordinance. In this instance, doing what I described would violate the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, that part I understand, but the applicant couldn't have a wedding at their house for free, could they?
I think they can have one, maybe they can have 2. A year, maybe a couple more, I don't know. At some point, though, and it's subjective because it's not defined, at some point, and depending on the facts, and if those weddings were for family members or close friends, and they're just, letting them use the property, that's fine. If they're for people that they don't know, I don't know, that gets them closer to a special events facility. The special events facility definition does not include any kind of consideration. It's not using the facility. It's not using the property for the event for some consideration, monetary or otherwise. So that's not a part. The quote operation of a business, etc., is not part of the special events facility definition. Therefore, at some point when you start having special events, especially, I think, if they are for non-family members, non-close friends, and they start occurring with some frequency, at some point you're going to trip, and that's a factual determination that would ultimately be made, made by a court.
Right.
At some point you're going to trigger the definition of the special events facility, and you would be determined to be a special events facility, even though you're not a business.
Right.
And you would be operating it illegally under the zoning ordinance unless you had a special exception permit to do it.
I think I understand what you're saying now, and that's BZA would eventually say, okay, we think it's a special events facility, and then it would probably, go to court.
Or not, or if we issued a notice of violation and took them to court on behalf of the county itself, then the circuit court would decide after the factual analysis that was presented to them on both sides. There'd be the county side, for example, to prosecute the NOV, and the owner's side to defend against it and say, no, we're not doing that, and this is why. So, but to just assume that a property owner can do anything they want on their property is, it's only accurate to the extent that they're not that use is permitted by law, basically.
Well, yeah, and I've tried to be consistent with that throughout my term, and that works with the sand and gravel people we've had when they want to rent their property out and then reclaim it. It's their property. I figured it was their right. What you're saying in this particular instance is it's not necessarily a property rights issue. You know, because if they wanted to have a party every month, well, let's say, I guess it's them, because if I had a party with my friends, it'd probably be one a year, and that one friend might not show up. But if they had a party every month for their friends, it wouldn't necessarily be a special event facility, right?
I think you have to look at all the facts that are surrounding it. I really don't want to make a generalization along those lines. I mean, a party, how big a party? 5 people for dinner, 150 people for a day-long or a 3 or 4 hour party, maybe. I mean, maybe you cannot do that, but you can do the former. It's really a fact-driven analysis, and you really can't make generalizations about it. But the ability to use private property as you want to be able to use it without getting whatever permits, et cetera, might be required. I mean, it's not an unfettered right.
Yeah.
And so it exists only so long as what your activity is not regulated in some way that you are violating those regulations. And again, in this type of instance, I can't tell you it's not a bright line. It's going to be determined on a case-by-case basis depending on what facts were put before the determining party, who initially would be the zoning administrator. It would be their decision to issue the NOV, the notice of violation, or to make a determination that whatever activity is going on is actually not permitted.
And the way it's being presented now, there's no restriction on the number of events that could be had.
Not by general law and not by the
Not
special
by
exception
definition
permit,
condition.
not by definition and not by the special exception permit conditions that you have before you right now. You could certainly add them. You can add a condition anytime you want, right up to the time you vote and approve or did not approve the application.
Thank you, sir.
It's not conditional zoning that is a proffer. It's not proffers. It's a different animal, even though the names are sort of similar.
Mr. Pennington.
Sorry, go ahead, Ms.
I'm
Long.
sorry. Mr. Pennington, at one part I read that there was use of the house overnight. So will there be overnight stays in the house?
Not that I'm aware of. As far as I'm aware, the only use of the house would be for the bride and groom to get dressed.
Is the house included in the 2 acres? On the diagram, I didn't see it was.
No, what was included in the 2 acres was the parking in the venue area.
Right. But the house is going to be used, that was not included, and the areas for outdoor wedding ceremonies was not included in that 2 acres. So we're actually talking more than 2 acres.
I believe,
And, I'm sorry.
I believe the outdoor area, if you look at the original submittal, it had venue area listed there for anything that would take place outdoors.
And the venue is the parking lot?
No, in between the existing garage structure and the house, they had listed as venue area.
Okay, all right. The deputy or security person on site for every event during that has alcohol. I don't think the live music matters to me one way or the other. It's the alcohol. When we approved one of these before, which was a 10-acre event facility in the middle of about a 200-acre farm with 95 on one side and a public road and another secondary road, another big farm on the other side, they had to have a deputy, not just a security guard, but someone who was trained to know if someone was safe to drive. What is your definition between security and deputy? Is there a difference there, or maybe Scott's not here?
At this time, it was left open to security, which could be private security. You're more than welcome to change it to a deputy.
Okay, all right. And limit on events. As I said, we all saw 6. Now we have no control. If this were to pass, you have neighbors that want to enjoy their property too. I don't think it should be used all the time. So I think we need to have a limit on the number of events per year and the number of events per month. Wedding season is, May, June, July, August, when everybody else wants to be outside also. They don't need to have cars and people and events going on every weekend and take away from their enjoyment. So I'd like to see a condition put on there for that. That's all I have right now.
Ms. Long, do you have a proposed condition to add?
If I was going to add a condition, it would be the one we would address that be no overnight stays, no overnight parking, that there would be a deputy on all events where alcohol was served, as well as of course, the license for the ABC dealer, and a limit of 2 events per month. That's double what was originally discussed. And I still think we should do drain field and restrooms, because porta potties are horrible.
Mr. Underwood?
Yeah, sure. Major Mosier, can you come just for a second? Mr. Pilgrim, just stay there.
Yes, sir, Mr. Underwood.
The question of noise from the venue, is it your responsibility to ensure that the noise ordinance, or your office responsibility to ensure we're within the noise ordinance?
That's correct.
In terms of intoxicated drivers, is it your responsibility to ensure that drivers on the road are not intoxicated?
Yes, sir.
In terms of safety generally of the neighbor's property, is it your responsibility?
Yes, sir.
Is it your responsibility to ensure that there's no infringement upon the neighbor's rights?
Yes, sir.
What about the neighbor's quality of life? How can you ensure that it won't be affected from
I
this
cannot. The only thing I can ensure is that the noise ordinance that the county has passed, this board has passed, is that it will be adhered to. And any type of vandalism that may occur, or drunk people that may wander on some other's property, but other than that, no, sir.
Right. Mr. Mastapolo talked about a land violation by Mr. Vikstrom removing. Does he have a remedy for that?
I missed it. I'm sorry. I did not hear that.
Mr. Mastapolo said that somebody had been infringing upon his property, removed some trees or brush or created a beach. Does he have remedy for that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Pendleton, I'm concerned about the porta potties. I think that would infringe upon my quality of life if I had to go out and look at porta potties being used or being accessible 4 hours a day. Would you agree that kind of infringes upon somebody's?
It does.
Right. I asked for his opinion. He's a professional. We ask for opinions all the time. So my question is, again, don't you feel that would infringe upon somebody's quality of life?
It could.
Mr.
Mr. Pennington? You go.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
The roadway has moved apparently from one of the plats that was given. Who owns the property between the tree lines?
VDOT, as far as I can tell. We would have to wait for a site plan to get that verified. That's the requirement at site plan is to have a new survey done, have an engineer draw up a site plan, and so that would be addressed at that time.
So we don't require that before?
No, sir, that's not required during.
I guess that's fair. It's important in this one.
I understand.
Mr. Chairman, I have one other question.
Yes, Ms. Long.
Pennington, was the amount of acreage needed to build a home in this district, in this zoning, is 1 per 10 acres?
That's correct.
And this is a 5 acre, 5.2 or 4.7, or who knows what, depending on what map we happen to look at.
That is correct.
That has a house and now is going to have an event center on it.
That's correct.
And porta potties. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Pennington, before I make a motion to approve this, I would like some of the letters I got, I don't see online. There was some information. Well, how does that come in? Because I want to make sure that everything, because we were flooded with information over the last week, and I couldn't find some of the presentations that were given to us online. So can you make sure that those are put online for us?
Everything that was given to us, we have forwarded to county admin.
Okay, and that can be, all those
Anything
presentations?
we have. Y'all got some mail directly with just y'all's envelopes on it.
Okay,
So
well, I'll give you that. I'll give
We
you
don't
that. If
have
it comes
that.
to us, it's
Somebody
public
doesn't send it to
information, so,
us or
yes,
put
it's-
one for me. We
okay.
don't have it.
I will hand some stuff over to you because I want to put it on the county website. I'm going to be honest with you. I've listened to whether this passes or not. I'm not sure it has the votes to. When you make a decision like this is probably in the 8 years I've been on the board, this is probably one of the tougher ones that's been in my district. I've listened to both sides. I went out and visited. I listened to both sides of the argument. I've been overwhelmed with facts. Sometimes I'm not sure the facts are facts from both sides. The big thing for me is, 4 years ago I hired a planning director. We all pick a planning director. The planning commission voted for this 6-0, not 5-0. I thought it was 5-0. When I got the minutes, it was 6-0.
No, one abstention, I believe.
One abstain.
Okay, so 5-0. All right, so one abstained. And that holds a lot of water for me. The second thing is what we're finding out what they can do on their property. I had talked to Mr. Sullivan. I have a property. I know I don't have a party every, month, but I have a party that can probably annoy my neighbors once a year. So what they can do without this special exception, they're conditioning themselves into a kind of the conditions. They're conditioning themselves into something. The third thing, and I have for the board here, is just because we say 1 per 10 acres, these are special exceptions we have passed. This board, whether we voted for or against it, it passed the board. We passed a special exception for Luckstone Mining Company. All right, that special exception, trucks coming in and out of the road constantly. We just did that in the last meeting. The closest neighbor is 438 feet away. And Luckstone's only been there, 6 years, 7 years, mining in that property? We passed the Cheney mine, which I wasn't in favor of, but we passed the Cheney mine, it passed the board. The Cheney mine was, the closest neighbor is 600 feet away. The dog kennel, dogs. The closest neighbor, we have 5 neighbors, I think, between 322 feet and 633 feet away. So it doesn't matter how many acres of land. If the house is, I can have 100 acres of land if my house is right next to someone else's house. The third thing, the leashes of valor. They have 5 structures now. That was controversial in the past. 5 structures within 1,000 feet. The fourth thing is the Bowling Green. We have a wedding venue in Bowling Green. Now, I know the wedding venue in Bowling Green is not us, it's the town council. On .8 acres of land, they have an offload of 40 with no parking, real parking for 40. So I've heard things about traffic on Anderson Mill Road, and that's why we're fixing Anderson Mill Road. We have a project in to fix Anderson Mill Road that is going to be a $4 to $6 million project that's paid for by the state. Most of your accidents, not a lot of your accidents on Anderson Mill Road are at that curve. We are fixing the curve. We have put in a project to do that. So that is being fixed. We approved on that curve with, I know there was a fatality a couple of years ago, it was in the news. We approved on that curve Shooter's Archery, probably 2 or 3 years ago, right on the curve. It used to be a hardware store. We approved it. If you go by that gentleman's property on a Saturday or a Sunday in the summertime, it is packed full of cars. He is doing an unbelievable business. We didn't have to do a special exception, but we did because it's a by right use. We have a winery on Ladysmith Road. And I know you guys are concerned about Anderson Mill Road, but if you've ever seen the statistics for Ladysmith Road, the statistics for Ladysmith Road are much worse than Anderson Mill Road. And we have a winery there that everyone says that they enjoy. And that involves alcohol. And a lot of people going there. So no one complains about the fact that the winery is there. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that we approve special exception 06-2018 with the conditions that were set forth that the Vickstroms agreed to. 1 per week. Limit 1 per week. And
I'll second to move forward.
All right, we have a motion and a second for the conditions that the county has signed with the addition of 1 event per week. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, just have a little bit of discussion. And I think Mr. Black makes some valid points regarding our special exceptions that we have looked at over the past couple of years, and I think some of the points are valid. For me, again, looking at it is, what are the rights of Mr. and Mrs. Bickstrom, a gentleman who, Mr. Sullivan, by all accounts, he's a nice neighbor. We don't want to cause issues between neighbors. That's not what we're here to do. We're trying to help neighbors get along, and this is unfortunate. But a gentleman who has run his own construction company and been a good business person, and then on the other hand, how does it affect the quality of life for those of us who enjoy the rural area? So it is a balancing act. And for me, as I read against, sometimes the rights of one have to be taken away for the rights of many. And that's what I'm weighing, that's what I'm looking at now. And this is, again, for the neighbors and for the Bickstroms, this is a very tough decision, and that you all are good neighbors. You all are good neighbors. And something that neighbors usually resolve, and it's just unfortunate that we're here, but I'm still not sure. So that's my comment, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion before we vote?
I just wanted to say, I agree. It's always hard when there's a community issue that comes up, and you want to protect everybody. I do have, as I said, I do have concerns about the size of this parcel. I live on the water. I live on the river, and I know how sound travels, especially when it's a dip, when it just likes to channel. And that really concerns me as to how it's going to affect neighbors, regardless of how hard they try to keep it down. It just echoes off water. I have a special event in another county, a half mile downriver from me, and I always know when they're having weddings. So it is a hard one because everybody loves weddings and it's a beautiful place. I'd much rather be here during a special exception for a bed and breakfast that everybody can live with. But hopefully whatever happens with this vote, that everyone will be fine and still continue to be neighbors.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, if we're all going to make comments, I think there's a couple things the board needs to understand. First of all, by law, according to the Commonwealth, each special exception must be considered on its own merits. So because I've approved one special exception does not necessarily mean I have to approve another one. And because I turned one down doesn't mean I have to turn down a similar one. So just to make sure we all understand that, to help out again, the issue with Luckstone is they were moving from one site to another, so the amount of cars they have on trucks they have on 301 will stay the same. There is no increase there. For me personally, I always try to find a win-win situation. Some kind of way we could both win. I thought maybe you could do something for, a couple of events to see how it would work with the neighbors. That's probably not going to work if you have to build a facility or build a building, some sort of pavilion, because that's a lot of expense to have a test for a couple of times. The other thing is if you build a pavilion and there are a lot of complaints, when you come back for a review, it may not be approved, so you've built a pavilion for nothing. The other issue was what Mr. Emerson said, and I've had conversations with board members about this before we got here tonight. And as you could tell when I talked to Mr. Emerson, I'm a property rights guy. I think you ought to be able to do on your property what you want to do, like he said, as long as you don't affect your neighbors adversely. I'm still trying to find that win-win, and I'm not sure that's really here. I imagine you can still do one or two, and the neighbors will be, maybe not amenable to it, but they'd get along with it, just to see if it works, and then we try it again. But that's at least where I am. I'm having a hard time finding a win-win, which is part of our all, decision-making. So that was my comment and decision process.
All right, with that, we'll go ahead and do a roll call vote, because I know it won't be unanimous either way. Mr. Thomas, how do you vote on this on this motion?
I'm going to have to vote nay.
Mr. Black, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Ms. Long?
Nay.
Mr. Underwood? Aye. Mr. Seeley?
Nay.
And I vote nay. Motion does not carry.
In lieu of the legal counsel, I'll make a motion to disapprove special exception SPX 06-2018.
Second.
Instructed that we do, Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on TV. But if we turn the special exception down, we turned it down.
No, you didn't. You did not approve a motion to approve it, which leaves the matter open.
Theoretically,
it's open and still on your docket.
Okay, maybe I should play one on TV because that's a waste of time.
I haven't heard a motion, I'm sorry.
I need a motion, Nancy, second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
To disapprove.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Thomas?
All right, I vote aye.
Mr. Black?
Nay.
Ms. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Nay.
Mr. Seeley?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
You better keep moving.
6.
Move on to item number 6. Proposed speed limit increases for portions of Route 301 and Route 207.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this item was carried over from your February 12th meeting. If you will recall, VDOT personnel attended that meeting and discussed a speed study of both the 301 and 207 corridors in the county. There was some question at the time, as I recall, about the exact boundaries of the Route 207 corridor options. In fact, there was some question about what the map really showed on the 207 corridor. So staff has prepared several options for the board's consideration related to, or for corridors for consideration in 207 corridor. Your first option broke it down roughly from Colonial Road to just short of Devil's Three Jump Road at the high school, and then a segment would pick up again just west of Goldinsville Road and carry it down to about Dry Bridge Road. Basically, the high school would remain roughly 55 miles per hour with increased speed limits on either side. I did talk to David Beal, who's a land use engineer with the Fredericksburg residency of VDOT. He suggested a third option, which included a segment just west or south of the intersection of Ladysmith Road, carrying it all the way through to Dry Bridge Road, which would include the high school. His rationale behind that is basically during your school hours, when you have students loading and unloading AM and PM as well as athletic events, you have sheriff's personnel present at the site to take care of traffic issues. And from a traffic concern, I think he was more concerned about the unsignalized intersection at Ladysmith Road and 207, which carries a high volume of traffic. So anyway, that was included at the suggestion of VDOT. I'm here to address any questions the board may have, not being a VDOT official.
I think I speak for at least Mr. Thomas, where I'm not a fan of having the increased speed limit in front of this high school, and I think it's, you always have students that are leaving early, that are coming in late, and we have our least experienced drivers in the entire county are pulling out to an area that we've going to theoretically would raise the speed limit on. So I like the option that excludes the high school and the Devil's Three Jump Road discharge personally. I understand his concerns with Ladysmith Road because I've fought that battle many times, but at least you have good sight distance for both ways there. So,
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Long.
Another point on the high school is not only do we have students going, we've got our law enforcement standing out there in the middle of the road, and I'm
We've already had
tired
one
of
guy hit
hearing,
out there, too.
yeah, we don't need anybody else getting hit out there. So 5 miles an hour is not a big change, but still.
Well, the point is that at 55 versus 60, you're stopping, it takes you 10% more time to stop. And with those new drivers pulling out of Devil's Three Jump, which is where they're going to be coming from, they're going to be closer to impacting cars going faster. So I appreciate what VDOT says, but I don't think under any circumstances should we increase the speed around the high school. So I think the maps we're just I guess west of the first Milford turnoff, and then we go to the high school, and then we pick up at 601. I wish the sheriff was here so we know I can read the map now. Yeah, but the sheriff and I had a discussion about what road was what, and I was wrong.
We already
Hear
knew that. We all knew
Hear
that.
that? I was wrong. Everybody gets to be wrong once. That was mine. And then I thought we would have it extend to, no, past Dry Bridge Road, but I guess at Dry Bridge, you're slowing down from Dry Bridge to the Enterprise, and then you're slowing down to Belmont. So you're slowing down twice before you get to Belmont at 45 miles an hour. So that seems like a good transition, and I'm sure we won't set up in there to make sure people are slowing down. But the maps, as the way they're presented, look like, they're good. At least to me.
Maps A and B, not C.
Right.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
we did not, I did not include any maps related to the Route 301 corridor. My recollection is that was discussed. It was entirely within Fort A.P. Hill, and the general consensus of the board was that was acceptable.
That's my recollection, but I haven't seen the tape.
Yeah, that's
Nobody does 55 from the AP Hill gate to Port Royal. You'd be lucky if they're doing 65.
Well, they do it at certain cutoff areas.
Yeah, certain places, that is true. There are places where there is a slowdown in traffic.
No motion was made regarding 301 at the last meeting, so if you want to do that, you should probably include that in the motion.
I'll make a motion that 301 past AP Hill to the Port Royal slowdown be 60 miles an hour.
Then maps A and B.
No, this is a different.
He's just doing one.
I'm just
we
doing
might
one
as well do them
piece.
both. Do them all. You can
Do
do
them
them all.
all.
And we use maps.
Mr.
All right.
Seeley, could you amend that to the town property boundary line instead of to the speed sign?
To the town, the 62, the town boundary line, and then again, can I use map A and map B as presented?
Yes.
As the rest of the 60 mile per hour increase in speed?
Yep. Second. I'll second. I'll third it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, have a roll call vote. Or, I'm sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Underwood. All right, item number 7.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board,
Compliance.
this is also a carryover item from your February 12th meeting. The board had, staff had presented the outstanding compliance issue related to the Virginia Sports Complex and the lack of a permanent means of sewage disposal. The current conditions require the connection to the public sewer system, and the prospective purchaser had requested the opportunity to evaluate alternative sewage disposal means. Staff met with Mr. Rodney Whitaker, who has gone out and conducted preliminary soils survey. Mr. Whitaker did identify several potential drain field sites that he believes is of sufficient size to support on-site sewage disposal. The applicant has also made application to amend their special exception permit to allow the construction of an on-site sewage disposal system as an option to the permanent sewage disposal means. And that is currently where we stand at this time.
Mr. Fincham, while the chair gets ready, did the applicant say that by doing this alternative system, he would be committed to using artificial turf on the field?
We have not gotten that far in the application or discussions. We just received the application earlier this week, in which we had discussed with Mr. Mills about getting the application in, and he has done that. So we have not actually started reviewing the request for the amendments.
Ms. Long?
Fitchum, will there be a time limit to do this on, or are we going to wait another 8 years?
That would be our recommendation, yes, ma'am. In fact,
What would
Mr.
be
Whitaker and I have
reasonable?
discussed a time limit. He believes that if the on-site sewage disposal option is approved, that could be accomplished within 7 months, including design.
I thought we had, the reason we were extending this and not dropping the hammer was because certain things had been promised for this particular facility. So now I find myself kind of out there flapping in the wind because the things that were promised are no longer being promised, or there are no guarantees. So I basically let the applicant off the hook for something he was supposed to do, and I got nothing in return. I don't work like that.
No, I understand. We just received the application earlier this week. I haven't even had a chance to look at it yet. I do recall the discussions that there are funds out there, that the request was to allow the use of those funds for other improvements to the facility, such as the artificial turf that you referenced. We have not yet had that discussion as part of the special exception amendment.
Well, I don't even know why we're wasting our time with this then.
You would have to have a public hearing to amend the special exception conditions, and then there's where you would put in other conditions of things that were negotiated.
That's where we could add those additional conditions
Require
is
that
during
to be
this
done.
process.
I got a broader question. Right now, there is an easement that's actually been procured that could actually be used to run the wastewater line. If that doesn't happen and this system fails, that facility won't exist because it will have no means of sewage disposal, which has always been the concern. Right now, there's no fiber optic cables in the way, there's no underground power cables in the way, and if we deviate, because this could have been done 10 years ago, but there was no site. Suddenly there's a site, and we're looking at changing conditions, and that condition has been there since before I came to the board, and I've been here 12 years. So how do we get from there was no place to now there is some place? We've already lost one route for wastewater because of fiber optic cables, and the longer time goes on, the higher the probability is that more fiber optic cables get put in the path, and then the cost of doing that goes up exponential. Nobody wants to dig around a fiber optic cable. Nobody wants to touch it. Nobody wants to go near it. And I have real concerns with that, since that whole corridor is becoming more and more encumbered with fiber optic cable.
Mr. Finch, Mr. Chairman. I thought the idea was, when the last time we met in January, I thought the idea was that the two sides staff was going to sit down and they were going to sit down and talk about different alternatives. Is this the only alternative that we have? Different ways of getting this done, because this is one, I'm seeing right now one option. And it's an option that the board, I don't think, not many on the board want. And I think the business plan that he's got, I really like. However, and it required artificial turf, and it also required the fact that we wanted a sewer line going through the Ag Fair property, if I'm not mistaken. And so that would benefit them, it would benefit him. And I thought the idea, maybe I'm mistaken about, what did we do, 30 days, 60 days ago in January sometime, we were going to come back with options on what we could pick that would be beneficial to both sides.
I think the request was to allow Mr. Mills the opportunity to look at an option or options to constructing the sewer, the interconnection. The cost of the interconnection, as I understand it, and it was articulated by Mr. Mills, I think previously to the board, the expense of that improvement he argued could better be used elsewhere to improve the facilities themselves. And Mr. Mills is here tonight, I think, who could address that issue specifically. But I think the idea was to, at least initially, allow the use of those funds that otherwise would go towards the construction of the sewer line to be used on site to improve the actual facilities of the sports complex, and allow the option of an on-site sewage disposal system.
If I may. So now we have three options we could pursue. We could continue with the pump and haul. We know what the sewer line would cost. It would be well over $500,000. And we know we have a local septic, on-site septic solution. I don't know the cost of it. But I will, we have three options. The problem is one of them is non-tenable for us. The pump and haul continued for long term is not something that we want to pursue. I understood that. I know we would like to provide the sewer line to the fair, but honestly, it's at his expense that we're bringing it to the fair, and that's not 100% fair to him to fund all of that. He has theoretically a lower cost solution that for the on-site sewage disposal for the septic system that has a spare area. Okay, so that's properly accounted for. Again, I don't know the cost, but at the end of the day, there are counties like us that are spending millions of dollars to build facilities exactly what we have in this county. And everyone that's touched that facility, it was built for over $14 million, it was sold for $8 million, now it's selling somewhere in the $3 million range. All right, everyone that's touched this facility has lost their behind. And personally, if this is an avenue to get rid of the pump and haul, to let him execute his business plan, and it satisfies the sewer issue that's totally within, the Department of Health requirements, I think it's a win-win. Again, that's my opinion, but that's how I see this whole decision process.
And I would agree with most of what you said, and I think you're right. But I will throw another analogy in there and let you know that the only reason we have a golf course at Pendleton is because we insisted the owner put the golf course in before he built all the houses. His plan was, I'll build the golf course at house X. And we said, no, that's a nice idea, but do it now. So where we are with this particular project is we've given quite a few extensions. So when the new purchaser got the property, he inherited all of those extensions and liabilities. I agree with you. The most important thing in this particular case is to make the facility viable. But I was born at night and not last night. The buyer said, I will turf these fields to make sure it's better and it's more usable. I'm willing to do that for his on-site system, but he's got to commit to doing that. And are you going to make that commitment now? Is that what you're saying? If you're going to make the commitment.
What y'all are really trying to decide tonight, if I may just interject something, is whether or not to prosecute the violation of the special exception condition of connecting. It's really not to determine what other solutions might be acceptable. He's put in an application for amending the special exception permit so that he would be in, if granted, he would be in compliance with it, or he could comply with it.
How long is it going to take for his application to get back to us?
That if you want to wait for the application and then have a public hearing, and have all these questions discussed and answered and then make a decision, that would
that's-
be appropriate.
that's what I'm saying.
In lieu of that, what you would end up doing is simply telling the Department of Planning to prosecute the violation of the special exception permit, which has clearly been violated for a long time.
For several years.
Revocation.
How long is it going to take it to get back to us? 2 months?
It's scheduled for the April Planning Commission meeting, and assuming they act at their April meeting, at your May meeting, we would come to you to schedule the public hearing, unless you authorize us to schedule the public hearing in advance.
You want to wait another 2 months?
Which the other option at that
This is
time
March.
would be for you to void the special exception permit.
And then we basically make his property useless.
Can we go ahead and advertise so that we don't lose them?
Advertise, make it an expedited public hearing, whatever, but as Mr. Emerson said, we're really just not doing anything with his agenda item.
Yes, ma'am. It's in process.
All right, I'll move we defer this action until our May, whatever meeting, our May meeting, which is kind of open-ended enough. We should have this meeting.
Normally,
Just approve an expedited public hearing for the
I'll-
first meeting. You can have it after the Planning Commission.
I'll do that then. I'll move for an expedited hearing, and we delay this until we hear from the expedited hearing.
Second.
All right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to delay until earliest possible date after the public hearing, or planning commission.
Expedited.
Delay any action and expedite the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Mills, you're on the clock. No.
No.
Actually, please come forward for a second, please. Please come to the mic. I'm not sure that if you didn't understand everything that just happened, sometimes it's hard to hear. We've delayed any action, any enforcement action. We're going to expedite your application for the review of this special exception. The changes to allow for, to change the conditions to allow for perhaps an on-site septic system.
Okay. Do I get to
You'd
say
like, something
anything?
you'd like to say?
I would.
All right. They're saying no. We have a public hearing.
You can come
but,
over here and whisper to me when you're going to put the turf in.
ASAP.
Okay.
That's the whole point of doing this.
Have a nice day.
I can't make any money without turf. And the original exception, I guess, had the option of a drain field in it. The second owner negotiated that out with you guys.
We're not supposed to be having this discussion. So.
You'll have
I'm just saying, it was in there originally, so you didn't hear it, I guess. But
Thank you very much, though.
thank you very much.
Mr. Mills, we will want you to come back to public hearing and kind of lay it all out for us.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir. We'll be in touch. Thank you. 5-minute recess, or are you going to keep going? All right, we're going to keep going. All right, 8B, which is the discussion of tax rates to advertise for fiscal year 2019-20 budget public hearing.
We'll just make a motion, leave them all the same and move on.
Anybody have an appetite to change or to advertise at any rate beyond?
Can we just make a motion to leave the tax rates as they are and move on from this?
For planning purposes?
For planning purposes? 15, 8B.
I don't need any motion. I don't need,
You just wanted to discuss.
yeah, basically
What
what I
we thought
wanted
the
to
tax
inform
rate
you
would
that
be.
normally on this meeting I would have presented the budget, but we're a little delayed, so we're presenting the budget on April 2nd. But with the public hearing on April 16th, there's not a lot of time in there. My plan all along is to try to make the budget fit, living out of the fund balance, with the tax rates all the same. But seeing as how we haven't really discussed that, and there's not going to be a lot of change, because we have that public hearing on the 16th, you've got to come back at 1st of May and adopt the tax rates to get the bills out. So if I guessed wrong and you really wanted to go up or, have more money, we would have no ability to do that. You could say tonight, hey, we don't mind you advertising some sort of tax rate. We can always go down. But what I wanted you to understand is if I plan and don't advertise a tax increase, there's not going to be a way to get one and get the tax bills sent out on time. There's just not enough leeway in the time frame. I'm not far enough along in the budget process to tell you what I'm going to need, but obviously you know that we're going to be coming back to you with, hey, we're going to need a couple million out of the fund balance. We didn't spend out of the 18 fund balance. So 18, right. We finished up 900,000 and change ahead. However, we owe VDOT $1.8 million July 1. So that nine's got to be added to the 500 that I already had in the bank for the Lady Smith Road project. I'm still short because that VDOT wants that total 3.8. They gave us a credit of 1.8, and we paid them $2 million, but they still want that 1.8 in July.
So they can spend it somewhere else.
So I'm not a flush with cash, but we didn't go negative in 18. When I mean negative, we didn't spend out of the fund balance.
Or 17.
Or 17 or 16 or 15 when I
Right.
plan it. Because when I plan it, it's normally a balancing number, but it could happen to you at some point in time where revenues aren't strong, the economy goes south, people stop buying new automobiles, things happen, and we may spend out of the fund balance, and if that time happens, we'll have to make a correction in the tax rate to be able to make that back up. But I plan on this year trying to live out of the fund balance one more year, but I didn't want to do that without really talking to you and boxing you into a corner with, hey, wait a minute, you've come to me with a budget and we don't agree, we want to give the schools more money, we want to do this, we want to do that. We decided we need to go up 2 cents. Well, you're not going to be able to go up 2 cents, is what I'm saying, unless you authorize me to sort of plan it now.
But the reality is, and there are some places where we might want to spend more, well, where I would like to see us spend more money. But the reality is you've had the last 3 years probably $1.5 million or $2 million out of the unencumbered balance that you used for the budget.
But I didn't.
But the budget came back at $4 or $5 million more. So
well, not that much, but yeah, we
had 900,000 last year,
yeah,
which we haven't seen
oh,
the audit yet for last year.
Yeah, you'll be there. She'll be here. We'll give it. I would have put it on the table tonight, but I want to clap it up with stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, and Ann will be here. We had so much tonight to try to get through. She's coming on April 2nd to go over the audit.
But that's beside the point. So we got 900,000 last year. We got like $1.5 million the year before, and $1.5 million the year before.
Yeah, all
that.
total, it's more than $4 million.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's my point. So we didn't trend up as much this year because
I budgeted closer because you
do a
didn't
lot
want me
better.
to.
Yeah.
Trend
Okay.
up. So is it a consensus, everybody, to sort of stay with the same tax rates as we currently have? That's all I was asking. It's not really a
My
vote, just a-
concern, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm for a tax rate, it's not, my concern is, and I don't remember, maybe I'm delusional, but I don't remember ever advertising a tax rate before I saw a budget.
Oh, yeah, we've had to advertise the rate normally. If we're going to have the public hearing, if we'd have done it normally.
Before we saw any numbers,
Right.
we've advertised a tax rate. Now, I don't,
Yes. Every year we present the budget at the first meeting in March and have the public hearing at the second meeting in March. I've already had to advertise by the time you get it. The difference with that is, if you didn't like it, you got a little bit of time to make some sort of more advertisement for a different tax rate and change it. This year, with it being in April, you don't really have that flexibility. I'm sorry about that. We got behind in the fall, with the audit, and we've been running behind ever since. It was certainly not my intention not to make the budget presentation and have the public hearing when we regularly were going to do it.
When did the majority of the board vote to raise taxes? We raised it, or they raised it a penny?
We raised it a penny. Well, I recommended a 2 cent, and that was two years ago. This will be the third year.
And that was
when we went up 1 penny.
Went up 1 cent. That was before we got the budget. You said we can go up 2 cents, or I recommend we go up 2 cents.
I recommended you go up 2 cents.
Okay. We had the budget at the same time. He recommended us to go up 2 cents.
And what we did was that 1 cent was cut out and was balanced off the fund balance. It was just added to the fund balance transfer, which we didn't actually use, but I'm not asking for a tax increase. I'm just giving you an opportunity to voice your opinion. I'm telling you I was going to leave taxes flat but that does limit how much money unless you say, all right, we're going to spend $3 million out of the fund balance. I mean, it limits how much if you decide we want to fully fund the schools or we want to do something, it's going to limit that ability because we're living with the same basic revenues that we had the year before, other than personal property appears to be up. Real estate sort of, we're coming up on needing to do another reassessment. That's one of the things I got to pay for.
I made a motion to leave tax rates the same. Nobody said. You don't want a motion?
No, just
Okay.
consensus.
All right. I'm good.
Anybody have any variance from up or down? Current? Or actually,
And I know you don't know.
My,
but
my
how
only
we-
my only concern with it is if we go up, we can always go down.
That is true.
I mean, you have this flexibility in the budget, and I probably a 90% chance that I don't want to go up, but at least I have a chance to see numbers before I make a decision.
so, do you think you would like an 84? Or
I wouldn't mind it and advertise a higher rate that we can always go down. That gives us a buffer.
I'm inclined to advertise 84. My inclination is to stay the same, but I see some merit in that.
What I would, with that, would be only, needed unless you.
I don't want to hate companies.
I don't see any costs.
We're at 83 right now, correct?
It doesn't. We're not voting to raise.
I'm not even voting to advertise.
We were at 81, then we're at 82. I think we're at 2, maybe 3. I don't keep up with it that way.
We don't have anything really to lose by advertising. There might be a 1 cent increase, except you'll have more people show up at public hearings. More people will pay attention to things. We do have to buy a new radio system. That's other expenses. But if we've had, and my feeling, if I
You
can
have
finish
more
my
expenses.
comment, is if Mr. Cully, who has done so well with our finances, feels comfortable with not advertising, then I'm more willing to put my trust in him. But I also see your point, Mr. Black, that it's just the paying for an ad.
Yeah, I know you don't.
So, I think that
I know. I appreciate that. That's nice. Yes.
I never blamed them. I didn't want to limit your, tie your hand.
Everybody let me know.
I never proposed one yet.
That has nothing.
that has nothing to
That
do
has
with
nothing
it.
to do with it.
It's funny.
And to let you know that 4 years ago, we did raise taxes during the election year because we needed the money. In this case, we don't necessarily need the money since a penny is $2.50. And we have 3 years of surplus. It's really 4, I think.
Mr. Culler's already planning on 83 cents as a tax rate. So it's either we go.
Can he do
we
82?
We advertise
God,
84.
no.
Can you do 82?
We don't have a consensus yet.
Right. You can always go down. That's what I'm saying. I'm not promising any money that they're going to get. I just gives Mr. Cully some flexibility because I haven't even seen any, and it gives us some flexibility because we haven't seen any expenses.
I'm waiting for Dan.
We've got a $2 million project coming up.
Nancy, do you get any chance of you voting for 84 cents? Okay, 83 cents it is.
Okay.
Oh, we got to buy this IBM AS400. I need another vote in.
Agenda item number 8, consideration of a resolution providing, oh no, we already did that, my bad.
Yeah, we did 8 and 10.
Item number 11, consideration of zoning ordinance text amendment to add communication facilities to the recreation entertainment district.
Oh,
All I'm asking is for you, if you're interested, refer this text amendment to the planning commission to go through the process.
So
We-
moved. I made the motion, somebody second.
Second.
Second. Second.
I did.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Ms. Calvert, can you step to the mic just for a second? Mr. Shebel? This is something I had written a note to myself, and I apologize, I didn't discuss it then. Would you have any opposition to adding volleyball pole inserts to the middle school floor as part of the floor project?
I personally am a proponent and champion of volleyball as a former player, so personally I have no objection, but I would certainly like for Joey and Mr. Honan to have conversation regarding what that would entail.
Okay.
The installer actually said that's something he could put in.
Okay, as part of the whole package?
It wouldn't be included in the price, but he could put that in.
As part of the whole package?
Unfortunately, it's all written out in the contract. It was bid nationally.
Right now, it's not an option for the gym?
It's not included in the dollar amount that we provided to the board, so, but it is an option for them to add that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can,
I mean,
can
I
we
could,
use the weighted poles?
I mean, if the board
Say
would,
Can we use the weighted poles for
No.
volleyball? instead
They
of digging
got
holes
rid of
in
those
the
about
floor?
40 years ago when people started breaking their feet on them.
So we're going to make dead spots in a really good floor when they play basketball?
No, every modern gym in America has the inserts in the floor.
Yeah, I thought it was stupid when they did it to the high school. So like I said, we're going to make dead spots in every floor. That's
Yeah,
why
absolutely.
we lost the
That's
championship game. The dead spot in the floor.
Well, it's not a dead spot. It's
Home court
actually,
advantage.
there's a steel sleeve that goes
It's
down.
springier.
home court advantage.
Anyway, it was something I had written down. I neglected to bring it up during the discussion, and it does provide an opportunity in the future to add that program, which is common in the area.
As many of you are aware, I am in the process of conducting the immersion process where I'm able to sit side by side with a number of constituents, and a trend that is appearing to arise is the continued focus on building athletic programs and offering future opportunities. So this would be in alignment with some of the information I am receiving from the different stakeholders I've sat with, if that is of assistance to you at all.
Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you, it's not going to affect the difference of them starting the process and getting us locked in for June. I can get the pricing and bring that back at the next meeting, because they're not going to do that until the install in June, so
Think the schools could find the money to cover that part of it?
we can find out how much it is and we can talk with them.
See if we can work it in there. See if we can buy them
We'll do our due diligence on our end once we have the number. We'll see what we can accomplish.
Thank you, both.
They're good holes.
They're good holes. All right. Item number 12.
I make a motion, we just purchased it, there's no way around it.
No way around it. We're going to be on the software. Even if we moved off of the software, that we're going to be 4 or 5 years doing it. Plus, we still got the CAMA package that runs off of the AS400.
Second.
Call the question.
All those in favor?
Discussion?
Discussion, Mr. Black?
One of the things that we had talked about is we had talked about adding the schools to the system so we could compare numbers easier. And
We're still working on that. We're still working on a way to import the information they have in RDA into the Tyler system, and so there may be a way. We just haven't gotten all the way to finish with Tyler yet, but we will continue to work to figure out a way to bring their information into our general ledger. So, I mean, we're not...
So I'm not hearing a guarantee.
Well, no, because I don't make guarantees that I can't control. What I can guarantee is we're most likely going to still be on the Bright software for 4 more years as we work our way through transition.
Man, come on.
That's how long. I mean, Tyler will stand right at the podium and tell you that it's going to take 4 years if we start tomorrow. I mean,
Can we drill holes in that thing to put up volleyball nets?
All right, all those in favor for authorization to purchase a replacement IBM
No.
AS400 computer, say aye.
No.
All any opposed?
Nay.
Nay, here, you want to use my computer? It's better than that thing.
Let's do a roll call. Mr. Thomas?
No.
Mr. Black?
I'm voting no because we didn't get a guarantee from the schools. We should have had that.
We have county systems that have to run on that
Yes,
system as well.
that's on us, not on them.
Ms. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Aye.
And I vote aye.
An iPhone has more power than an AS400, just in case you wanted to know.
Why is it so expensive?
The iPhone's only $1,000.
No, why is this 45?
Yeah, why don't we run our software for iPhone?
All right.
Keep
All right.
moving, 13.
Item 13, proposed changes to the 2019 Board of Supervisors bylaws and rules of procedure. We wanted to do it in a consent agenda.
You don't want the blow by blow, do you? Just any questions? I mean, we can walk through it if you want.
In the section
Get
4.2
anything
regarding
you want.
regarding public comment,
Yes.
is it necessary for us to include that we will still accept written documents or written correspondence in that? It says that we will not allow public comment, but it doesn't say that we will.
I think that can be easily added.
Yeah. It's not in there. You know how.
Yeah. Yeah, it already says that.
All right, I'm looking at the public comment section. That might be why. All right, I was just looking at the highlights. I didn't look at the actual. Which section 6?
If you,
That's page 6. Page 8.
Okay. All right, I was looking at the highlights page. And I didn't. All right. My questions were addressed. All right, any other comment, any discussion from the board
Just make them up.
on item number 13?
I make a motion that we adopt recommended changes to the bylaws.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Underwood?
I think this is March 2019, and we've operated for 3 months now. So we're saying that now we're going to operate under, we're going to change the bylaws for 2019. It's a little disheartening to me that we didn't do it in January. Therefore, I don't think we should make a change until 2020.
Well, I know it was pushed
Are
back
bylaws
last week.
retroactive?
We did.
Help me, Mr. Emerson.
The tradition, I guess, of the board has been at its first meeting to adopt
Correct.
bylaws in the organizational meeting, and y'all didn't do that this time because some questions arose and some people had thoughts that, well, maybe we ought to do some revisions here and there or whatever, and so we did those, and then I think it got put off at one of the meetings because it was such a long, late meeting and all. So you could, if the board wants to do what you're suggesting, they certainly can. But I just wanted to make sure you understood that you actually have not adopted any bylaws for this year. So if you do that, you won't have any bylaws in effect the rest of the year.
That sounds good. I like that. I like chaos.
Clear.
But by definition, we run under Robert's Rules of Order. You know,
Not really.
Call for a vote, Mr.
well, the
Chairman.
other thing is we can change whatever rules you want to change by majority of the board.
That's exactly right.
some of the
In essentially, ultimately,
Yeah.
when it's a question that's not in the bylaws, or frankly, even if it is
If it
something
is,
in the
right.
bylaws, the chairman makes a ruling on whatever the issue is. and then that is subject to being overridden by a majority of the board at any time.
The board could
in
could
any
appeal the
That's-
decision and chair, and
That's exactly right.
that's the rule.
That's exactly right. Whether you have bylaws or not,
This
and
is
whether
an
it's covered by the
experience
bylaws
right
or not.
I just called.
All right, let's go.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Bylaws have been changed and adopted. Item number 14, proposed memorandum of understanding with the Virginia Department of Transportation for administration of Adopt a Highway program.
Can we just table this for a minute?
It's not even 10 o'clock yet. Stop your
Mr.
bit.
Shebel, is this you?
We're almost there.
We're almost done. We have to go back.
Y'all want to
Yeah,
take
but
a
this has
break.
got a financial impact, doesn't it?
You
Yeah,
gotta-
$25,000.
Talk to us.
All right. As you are aware, there was an agreement that now VDOT has signed off on the Adopt a Highway program that would allow the county to facilitate that program for the state. So we would then become the point man for trying to drum up new adoptees. With that becomes the responsibility of us to be able to sign them up, approve the road. We would then send an email to VDOT to have them install the sign once the first cleanup is done. We would provide the pickers and the bags. VDOT will donate the bags to us, but we'll be the issue point. Twice a year, if we do not hear from any of the Adopt a Highway coordinators, we will be calling them and saying, hey, we haven't heard from you. It's time to pick up your trash. So we'll be trying to touch base with them. In the spring of every year, we'll be bringing them, each of the groups, before the Board of Supervisors around Earth Day to present the number of bags of trash that have been collected throughout the year and to give them small plaques of appreciation for them picking up trash in the county. So VDOT has a great database. Virginia Adopt a Highway program is known throughout the Commonwealth. It's a great program. It's just not, VDOT has not been pushing that. So with that, there's some other things that could make a bigger impact in the county. Some of those are things that we'd like to do in the school system and work with the schools and maybe do cash for trash and work with the clubs and the sports throughout the school system, allow them to be able to adopt roadways and pay them $5 a bag to pick up trash. It's a great program Spotsylvania is using right now and is working great. We'd also like to do the community service litter pickup so that this position would come with a part-time position 3 days a week that would be called our environmental coordinator. That position would coordinate all of the litter and recycling education program, manage a Virginia Adopt a Highway program, coordinate the court-ordered community service litter pickup. We would actually have somebody that the judge can actually work, or the Commonwealth Attorney work with directly to be able to coordinate some of those. Work with local businesses to develop funding and support for litter control and recycling. Plan and participate in Earth Day, the Literathon, and Literathon actually would be done by our civic organizations in this. So you get the Boy Scouts, any nonprofit churches and things like that could pick up trash, and we could pay them $5 a bag also. Monitor and file paperwork for our statewide non-competitive grants, and also facilitating educational workshops within the schools and with the kids. We actually had a grant that we could have gotten this year to actually do some litter magic shows in the schools. However, we didn't have time to be able to coordinate with schools and get that program in there. Spotsylvania and King George do it, and the school system just really loves that and really works hand in hand with some of their SOL requirements. Develop and present litter control and recycling education programs around the county, and then plan and organize regional application for environmental educational opportunities. So this position that we're looking at would be just a part-time position, but really do a lot of things coordinating to help with both recycling and litter. And I'm asking for $25,000 to help support that, to be able to coordinate all of the litter pickup and all of our recycling efforts that we do. That was for some part-time, I think we have called them litter technicians now.
So we're going to be 50K into this. Because we gave
Well, one of the things that we're doing is I am reaching back out to the jails and trying to see how we might be able to coordinate with them and maybe use some funding to help offset some of their cost. I know that the jail down in Dawn actually has a program, except it's for pay. So I've got a meeting. I'm trying to set a meeting up with them to find out how that works. Hanover County has one where we can actually get inmates. That program's a little more cumbersome. We were actually in that for a while, but that's something that we might be able to use as well. And then this position would also be able to coordinate with VDOT so we know when trash pickups are being done so we're not duplicating efforts on some of those.
And just to confirm, these are separate from the technician position, 17K we approved
Correct.
last month.
Correct.
And this is moving forward, and what's the duration for the 25K expenditure?
That'll be a part-time position, 3 days a week, 52 days a week.
The 25K will take us through the end of 2019, or?
That's an annual cost.
What we can do about it? I'm worried about enforcement. Before we're spending money. We spent $25,000 for people to pick up. Now we're spending $25,000 for coordinator, and we still don't have any enforcement. Where are we with enforcement of people throwing trash out of their vehicles? We talked about cameras. Where are we?
That's major.
We don't have. We can bring back litter control agents, but right now that's under the sheriff's department.
Major Mosier?
Yeah, but we talked about cameras at some of these really high throw out the window sites, and now we're spending more money. They told us that the cameras weren't that expensive. It was easy to do.
You want to know about litter enforcement?
The cameras that we were going to put up at the high litter sites that we said wouldn't be any problem to do.
Absolutely.
So that was a month ago. Where are we?
The sheriff has directed staff to do the research on that for the cameras to be installed. Not only that, we've been going around to different locations. We got complaints about littering, and we've been going through the trash and trying to identify the individuals that actually threw their trash out, and we've been...
Major Mosier.
Yes.
I was told, because you know I've been a stickler on this.
Yes.
And you know I've been saying this for 8 years, 7 years, because I do adopt a highway. I was told that unless you saw them, we couldn't do anything. So now we're saying we can do something if I say an address on the road. I was told earlier that unless we actually physically see them, even if I have the address and it's like Kevin Whiteman and it's like from an Amazon box, I was told by you guys that we couldn't do anything unless we saw them. Now are we saying you can enforce it if you see it on the side of the road?
And we've been going through... Absolutely. We've been going through the trash, going through there, and finding names and addresses, prescription bottles, and then we've been addressing it with the people that actually own the trash. Now, you may not be able to enforce it if the people don't admit that they're the ones that threw the trash out there, even if it has their name on the box. We've had situations just outside of Bowling Green here where there's a big pile of trash that some older lady had somebody carrying off her trash for her. So it wasn't her that actually threw the trash out there. But it can be investigated. That's correct. Mr. Black, you said you were going to bring me some boxes that had names on there. Yeah.
You're right, I did.
Yes.
Good point.
Yeah. They didn't have your name.
I picked those up.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I'm not willing to move forward with more money till we figure out where we are with enforcement, because I think we're chasing our tails, personally.
Ms. Steele, I would point toward the educational benefits of this, because I really think litter is something we need to train our children and our citizens for. But also, this person would cover hours at Earth Day, which right now you have other staff going to do. And that's a full-day thing right there. And we'd be taking on this extra work. Somebody has to coordinate with this MOU with VDOT.
Right.
And 3 days a week, all year long for $25,000 is a deal.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I tend to agree with Ms. Long, however, and there's a however in there. We're supposed to be, I asked staff for a meeting with the superintendent or someone from the office, the sheriff's department, the public works department, which is Mr. Sheeple, which is supposed to be coming up about the whole holistic approach to this. And to me, I'm not saying I disagree with this. I just think that if we're going to have that meeting where we're going to have the sheriff's office and we're going to have, the Commonwealth attorney is going to be involved in the meeting, or as far as I think what we need to do is, I would like us to see us just table this until after that meeting is over. I'm not saying I'm against it. If there's some ideas.
Aye.
All right. Cool.
Mr. Black, is this just concerning the budget impact?
It's
or
the budget impact
MOU?
and then the budget impact, MOU, just
Okay,
all
I
this
thought
stuff
you were
totals.
anxious on the MOU.
No, we don't need to vote on it.
I already voted aye.
I did do it.
All right, we'll call table to May meeting? First meeting in May?
Yep.
Okay, make the motion.
I made a motion to table. I mean,
Yeah.
when it comes back, it's up to staff.
He seconded it, and I said aye.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Table. I don't see anything else on the agenda other than closing board comments.
We did this closed meeting already.
Yep. The closed meeting on the agenda is not needed.
And we took action on what we needed to take from the closed meeting.
Yes. Do capital updates.
Mr. Wilson, 11:01. Thank you.
All right. Unless you want to have the calendar explained or any capital improvements, we'll go ahead and go into closing board comments. And Mr. Thomas, you get the first crack at it.
I'm good.
All right, Mr. Black.
I will be looking to have constituent meetings second week in April, so Mr. Cully,
Oh,
if you could, I will announce those in the next couple of days. Thank you.
can I back that up? We are definitely going to have our budget hearing April 2nd, right? No, our budget presentation will be April 2nd. Okay. Because I too want to have a constituent meeting after the budget was presented.
Presented the second hearing on the 16th, I think is what we planned.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But it doesn't matter what's between then and the public hearing. I just need to have something after it's presented so people will know. So, and I will work with Mrs. Hall. Thank you, Mrs. Hall.
All right, Ms. Long.
I just wanted to remind everybody that the Family Fair event is being held this Saturday. Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend. I'm scheduled to work, but I'll be here for setup on Friday. And want everyone to have a happy and safe St. Patrick's Day. Maybe warm my pen.
Okay. All right, Mr. Underwood.
Just a reminder, community meeting tomorrow night at 7 at Dawn Library.
All right, Mr. Seeley.
Community meeting, 21 March, 6 o'clock.
And on that same night, we have our annual Farm Bureau meeting. I am coming. Anybody else?
Remember, you need to RSVP, gentlemen.
I'm coming.
I will be.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Give it a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Our meeting is